Chapter 21:32. At that moment the woman's brows were slightly furrowed, as if a sliver of pain was spreading between her brows. And it was this trace of pain that had already caused the surrounding laws to undergo subtle changes, causing the infinite spacetime hidden between the void to undergo various earth-shattering changes. As a result of these earth-shattering changes, the surrounding spacetime seemed to become dim, and the lingering pain began to spread in all directions, causing any existence that sensed the changes in this area to naturally feel an inexplicable pain. Of course, all of this was only for ordinary living beings. For Luo Fan, these changes were not enough to make his heart flutter at all. At this moment, there was only an inexplicable displeasure in his heart. No matter who it was, they would be displeased to be attacked for no reason. It was the same even if the one who attacked him was a beautiful woman who could change the laws of heaven and earth with just her appearance alone. At this moment, his heart trembled slightly, and the divine power formed by the sharp concept shook slightly before condensing again. Then, it directly broke through the spacetime and rushed straight towards the spacetime where the woman was. The world itself was even more advanced than the spacetime on the third level of the Tao Master's Road. Whether it was the strength or the complexity of the spacetime, it had reached an extremely shocking level. If Luo Fan had not cultivated in the third level of the Tao Master's Road for such a long time, and even broken through all the shackles of the third level, it would have been impossible for him to break through the spacetime of this world so easily, and it was even possible that he would not have any extraordinary ability. At this moment, there was a trace of anger in the woman's eyes. "You actually dare to attack?" She spat out such a sentence. The power of this sentence was no less than that of her appearance, and it also changed the surrounding laws and principles, as well as the countless spacetime around. It caused the spacetime and laws that originally contained pain to gradually turn into a kind of angry laws and spacetime. Immediately afterward, she didn't seem to make any movements, but an incomparably mysterious power had already condensed and directly blasted at Luo Fan's sharp concept divine ability. Crack! An earth-shattering roar broke out at this moment. At the point of contact, the surrounding space seemed to be instantly devoured and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, a strange scene that should have never appeared in this world had appeared in the surroundings. There was no world cluster, no space-time, not even laws. On the other hand, the concept divine ability that Luo Fan had released had completely collapsed and disappeared without a trace. The entire process was mysterious and had completely exceeded the scope of his understanding. He could not help but feel terrified. What kind of technique is this? He was shocked as this thought flashed through his mind. From what he could sense, the technique that the woman was using was faintly as mysterious as the one he saw when he raised his head to look at the sky. However, there was a fundamental difference in terms of level. It was as if that mysterious technique had been simplified thousands or tens of thousands of times. Of course, they were all mysterious, and they were all existences that he could not understand. At this moment, his evaluation was obviously only a rough one, and he had no way of knowing exactly what the truth was. When this thought emerged in his mind, he felt an indescribable sense of hope. This is the best place to start. This was what he thought at this moment. When Luo Fan discovered that completely incomprehensible, aloof, overlooking and shrouding mystery, he knew in his heart that if he wanted to break through the fifth great tribulation, he would have to do something on top of that mystery. No matter how he dealt with the mystery, it was necessary to understand it in order to get through the fifth tribulation. Obviously, with his current level, it was a little too ambitious for him to directly understand the supreme mystery that shrouded the world. The leap was too great. Under such circumstances, the mysterious power that was simplified from that mysterious technique was clearly the best place to start. In this case, the appearance of this woman was simply like a pillow when he wanted to sleep. At this moment, he had already made up his mind. No matter what this woman's motive was, He could not let this woman go. At the very least, he had to dig out the essence of that mysterious power from her. At this moment, with a thought in his heart, he lifted his foot and took a step forward. His figure directly broke through the layers of space-time and quickly headed towards the space-time where the woman was. According to the distance between this world and the woman, she was at least billions of light-years away from where Luo Fan was. With such a distance, she had clearly entered the continent that Luo Fan could see with a single glance. As for whether she was in the depths of the continent, it would depend on how big the continent was. The woman had clearly noticed Luo Fan's actions. She furrowed her brows and the anger that was being emitted from her became even more intense. Along with the change in his mood, a red flame gradually appeared in the surrounding space. It was none other than anger. These flames of anger filled the surroundings, and even filled up the absolute vacuum that had been triggered by the collision between Luo Fan and her methods, which should not have appeared in this world. In a trance, this place seemed to have turned into a sea of anger. Moving the spacetime in this world was more difficult than in the third level of the Tao Master's path. From time to time, an indescribable chaotic force appeared around him out of thin air. It seemed to be stirred up by the spacetime and formed an obstruction to him. It even took him to randomly teleport him to a strange place. Fortunately, Luo Fan's current strength was quite strong. According to his understanding of the third level of the Tao Master's Road, he had the most perfect response to every kind of change that occurred. Although he was disturbed by the accidents in the process of shuttling, in the end, it only slightly slowed down his speed, and he did not deviate in the slightest from the direction of the woman. Finally, after dozens of breaths, he directly traversed hundreds of millions of light-years of spacetime and appeared in a sea of anger. This was where the woman was. At this moment, the woman quietly floated in the sea and looked at Luo Fan with a gaze that seemed to want to poke 1,000 holes into him. "I've guarded the world for billions of years. You're the first one who dares to take the initiative to attack me after being discovered by me," the woman said at this time. Her voice was crisp and pleasant, but the anger contained in it made the surrounding sea of anger even more vigorous. Guard the world. Luo Fan was slightly shocked. Although he did not clearly understand what it meant, at least he knew the woman's understanding of his identity. Guarding the world means to prevent the occurrence of any damage to the world. "I don't know that I can cause damage to the world." Luo Fan looked at her and said lightly. Compared to the woman's every move, every emotional change, and every change of expression, which was enough to cause a huge reaction in the surrounding spacetime, Luo Fan's performance was relatively calm. His words only seemed a little mysterious. As for any impact on the surrounding environment, it did not affect at all. Not destroyed? What's going on with that island? Do you think that no one will notice the disappearance of those islands? The woman said at this time. As she spoke, her voice sounded like she was asking a question. Hearing this, Luo Fan smiled and said, "I admit that the disappearance of those islands is related to me, but..." Before he could finish, the woman interrupted him. "Since it's related, then it's fine. You should calm down for billions of years first." As she spoke, she suddenly raised her hand and slapped at Luo Fan in the air. With this slap, the infinite mysterious power was like an earth-shattering wave, carrying infinite power as it pounced towards Luo Fan. At this moment, Luo Fan felt as if billions of times of spacetime were stacking together and crushing towards him. "You want to seal me for billions of years? I don't have that much time." At this moment, he already understood what the other party was thinking, and he could not help but feel displeased. Then, he let out a soft cry, and as his power surged, streams of concept god art gushed out of his body. They formed a chaotic light shadow in the void and rushed towards the mysterious power. However, at this moment, he had already used his most powerful technique. The chaotic light shadow that was formed from the combination of countless concept God arts was actually a state that was formed after every concept in the world of laws was transformed and strengthened. It contained the power of countless concept God arts, and due to their respective chaos, the countless concept God arts even reacted with each other and gave birth to all kinds of terrifying power that did not originally exist. As soon as the chaotic light shadow appeared, it instantly suppressed the surrounding sea of anger and directly melted it, causing the previous absolute vacuum to reappear in the surroundings. Immediately after, the chaotic light shadow surged and brazenly devoured the mysterious power completely. It minced and melted it, causing the mysterious power to collapse bit by bit, causing the chaotic light shadow to continuously pounce towards the woman. Even if the mysterious power contained all kinds of profundities and power that Luo Fan could not understand, no matter what, this profundities and power were not absolutely invincible. If the difference in quantity was to a certain extent, no matter how mysterious and incredible the profundities and power were, they would still not be able to defy the heavens. This was the case at this moment. Although the mysterious power had mysteries that Luo Fan could not understand, under the combination of concept God arts that were countless times more powerful than it, it could not put up any effective resistance at all. After being stirred by the chaotic light shadow, it was violently scattered and destroyed. At this moment, the woman had a horrified expression on her face. However, this shock didn't even have the time to affect the surrounding spacetime before it disappeared, because at this moment, the chaotic light shadow that Luo Fan released had instantly broken through all her defenses, minced all her power, and devoured her directly. Although the destructive power of the chaotic light shadow was unimaginably powerful, it was still a combination of concept God arts that Luo Fan released. However, Luo Fan's control over it could not be weakened by much. Under such circumstances, it was naturally a simple matter for him to devour a certain existence without destroying it. As the woman was devoured by the chaotic light shadow, the various phenomena in the surroundings began to calm down. Her location, which had originally been concealed by the existence of this woman, was now gradually being revealed. That place was a platform built on top of a certain mountain peak. There were thousands of times more worlds and space-time than other materials gathered on the platform. On the surface of the platform, there were extremely complicated runes, lines, and patterns outlined with some power that Luo Fan could not understand. The combination of all these made the platform have a charm that transcended the world. Luo Fan integrated his perception into the platform. In an instant, he discovered that his perception had begun to spread wildly. In the blink of an eye, it had already surpassed the limits of his perception, and he could see the various details within a range of billions of light years. An unknown amount of information seeped into his heart through his senses, causing him to vaguely feel his understanding of the world rapidly increasing. After an unknown amount of time, it seemed to be just a moment but also like millions of years. The various information that poured in gradually began to weaken, and Luo Fan also began to gradually return to his senses. Finally, he let out a long sigh. I didn't expect it to be like this. Through the situation of the world that he had sensed with the help of the platform, he finally had a general and comprehensive understanding of the world. The situation of the world was indeed somewhat similar to the third level of the road to Tao Master. However, compared to the third level of the road to Tao Master, it was more stable, and the mystery of spacetime and the mysteries of the world were more deeply hidden. Apart from that, there was a similar platform at regular intervals in this world. These platforms stood in special places and were closely connected to each other, forming a huge network that monitored every inch of spacetime and every inch of land in this world. The platform that Luo Fan was on now monitored this continent that was millions of times larger than half of the big world, as well as the surrounding ocean area that was hundreds of times larger than this continent. Of course, this was only what Luo Fan sensed through the magnification of his perception through the platform. As for the purpose of this kind of surveillance and what exactly it was monitoring before he communicated with the creatures in this world, he was not clear. On this continent where he was now, the number of creatures was quite large. The variety was even more abundant than he had imagined. Among them, there were tens of billions of species of intelligent creatures that Luo Fan now knew. These tens of billions of species of intelligent creatures had established their own civilization systems in various parts of this continent. There were disputes, friendships, grievances, love and hatred between them. It could be said that each kind of intelligent species had an epic history with other intelligent species. The situation of the whole continent was more complicated than any continent that Luo Fan had seen before. As for the cultivators, there were so many civilizations on this continent, but the number of cultivation civilizations was hundreds of times more than the number of these civilizations. Among such a large number of cultivation civilizations, there were so many cultivation systems that it had reached the point where Luo Fan was dumbfounded. Moreover, what was more important was that almost every one of these cultivation civilizations was faintly related to the supreme mystery, as if they were formed by some kind of simplification of that mystery. Of course, almost all of the cultivation systems were simplified to a degree that was tens of thousands of times stronger than the mysterious simplification of the woman that Luo Fan had subdued. Only a very small number of cultivation systems could barely approach this degree of simplification. In other words, the one that possessed the most mysterious characteristics was the mysterious power that the woman that Luo Fan had subdued just now. It was because he understood the structure of this world that Luo Fan understood why these platforms formed a tight network between each other, and why he could still subdue the woman and take over the platform. He could use the platform's power to obtain all kinds of information that he needed. The reason was very simple. It was because this world was just too vast. Just the number of platforms that he could faintly sense right now was in the trillions. Moreover, he could faintly sense that there were even more platforms that were countless times more than the platforms that he could sense. With so many platforms, no matter how powerful a cultivator was, it would be impossible for them to keep track of every single one of them at all times. It was even more impossible for them to immediately know if the other platforms had changed owners or if the original owners had been suppressed. It was precisely because of this that Luo Fan could easily occupy this platform at this time. Of course, if there was an existence that was familiar with the owner of this platform, it would naturally be easier for them to notice the abnormality of this platform and discover that the owner of this platform had been suppressed. However, it was clear that this woman was not very popular, but almost none of the other platforms could sense this place at all times. Chapter 2134. The woman looked at Luo Fan with a speechless expression. Luo Fan smiled again and said, "All right, now that things have come to this, I can't give up this platform anymore. What do you plan to do next?" It didn't matter if he was bullying a child or not, this platform was very important to him. It was fine before he took it over, but now that he had taken it over, he naturally couldn't give it back. As for what this woman wanted, it would depend on what her request was. If her request was acceptable, he wouldn't be stingy to help her a little. Of course, if her request was too much, he could only go back to where he came from. Seeing Luo Fan like this, the woman's expression became even more displeased. How could this be? He had been doing so well as a guardian here. Suddenly, his platform was snatched away, his identity was snatched away, and now he was treated as if he was a charity. How could he tolerate this? Immediately, she shouted, "What I do doesn't need you to care. I will definitely find a way to take back this guardian platform." With that, she snorted and turned around to leave. Luo Fan saw this and said helplessly, "You plan to leave just like that? How did you get this platform back then? Where is the guardian that you took away the platform from back then?" Hearing this, the woman was slightly startled. She turned around and looked at Luo Fan with eyes full of vigilance. Seeing her like this, Luo Fan knew that this person probably didn't obtain this platform through proper means. And the previous guardian probably didn't have a good ending either. What do you want? Do you want to silence me too? Silence me? I didn't expect you to be so decisive even though you don't look like much. Luo Fan looked at her with a surprised expression. It's not my fault, he kept pestering me. The woman heard this and hurriedly said, with your ability, it's impossible for you to defeat a guardian without any reinforcement. How did you do it? Who helped you? Luo Fan asked. Now you know fear. You should know that I'm not alone. At this moment, the woman's expression revealed a lofty charm as she looked down at Luo Fan and said so. Hearing this, Luo Fan couldn't help but laugh and said, you really aren't alone. However, I've been occupying your position for so many years, but no one has discovered it. Why is that? The woman blushed slightly. Luo Fan's words were clearly the best refutation to her claim that she was not alone, and it was a retort that she had no way of dealing with. After all, if she really had a companion, why wouldn't they care about her? She didn't even care that her territory had been robbed for so many years. However, even if he lost in person, he wouldn't lose in spirit. It was obvious that this woman wouldn't admit defeat so easily. At this moment, she said, if they weren't in closed-door cultivation, you would have pissed your pants by now. Okay, all your friends are in closed-door cultivation. None of them happened to come out and contact you all these years. Luo Fan said with a smile. His teasing tone made the woman's expression turn ugly. Don't worry, I won't go so far as to silence you. After all, it's not a big deal. Luo Fan looked at the woman's increasingly stiff expression and said with a smile. Hearing this, the woman heaved a sigh of relief at first, but then she felt displeased. What does this mean? Isn't it a big deal that my cultivation was taken away by someone else? How about this, I won't be at ease if you leave. I won't go so far as to silence you. Since that's the case, you should stay here and cultivate. Don't leave my sensing range, so that I can find you whenever I want. Luo Fan said faintly. You want to imprison me? The woman's expression changed drastically. Compared to your methods, my methods are considered mild, right? Luo Fan looked at the woman and said faintly without any change in his expression. Hearing this, the woman couldn't breathe. Clearly, Luo Fan didn't have the mood to be entangled with her anymore. With a thought, he pointed at the surroundings, and the countless worlds in the surroundings began to quickly assemble, condense, and construct. In the blink of an eye, an extremely vast space-time was formed and placed in a position not far from the platform. Please. After doing this, he said to the woman. The woman was very displeased and wanted to resist with all her might. But in the end, she couldn't make up her mind and could only slowly walk into that space-time. After sending the woman into that space-time, Luo Fan shook his head and sighed. With a wave of his hand, that space-time was directly sealed into the void and couldn't be found anymore. After subduing the woman, Luo Fan turned his attention to the large area that the platform affected. Everything that happened in this region was no secret to the platform. In other words, Luo Fan would be able to know whatever he wanted to know from this platform within the range of billions and trillions of light years. No matter how big or small it was, he would be able to know it without missing a single detail. There were so many civilizations in this area, and the number of cultivation systems was countless times greater than the number of civilizations. In this way, the number of cultivation methods had reached a level that was beyond the imagination of any living being. According to Luo Fan's previous understanding, all the cultivation systems in this area were more or less related to that mystery, and could even be said to be a simplified version of that mystery. In this way, as long as Luo Fan studied those cultivation methods, he would naturally be able to get close to that mystery to a certain extent, and then get close to breaking through a certain layer of the world that was constructed by the fifth disaster that simulated the state of chaos. Although Luo Fan could already use some of the mysterious power that the woman had used before with the help of the sky connecting platforms power, it was still a preliminary use after all. However, that was only the first step of using it. His understanding of that mysterious power was limited to just how it was formed, but not how it was formed. In other words, he knew how to use this mysterious power and how to make it exert a corresponding effect. However, he did not know how to cultivate this mysterious power, nor did he know what the essence of this mysterious power was. In comparison, who knew how many civilizations in this area were involved in this mysterious cultivation system? Although their levels were many times lower than the platforms, he still got close to that mystery from nothing. The specific cultivation methods and the cultivation principles within were great inspirations for Luo Fan. In particular, with the mysterious power brought by the platform as a comparison, the inspirations were even more powerful. In particular, with the mysterious power brought by the platform as a comparison, the inspirations were even more powerful. There were hundreds of millions of cultivation systems, and every cultivation system had countless cultivation sections. Naturally, there were even more cultivation methods. Wanting to study these cultivation methods clearly was a project that almost made one despair. Just looking at the many cultivation methods and memorizing them was enough to make any cultivator break down. Of course, this only included other cultivators, and Luo Fan was obviously not included. After all, Luo Fan's Taoist heart had already reached a state of eternal immobility. In addition, these cultivation methods were related to him getting through the fifth disaster, so he had no choice but to be serious and devote himself wholeheartedly to them. Under such circumstances, how could he break down because of the number of cultivation methods? On the contrary, he felt inexplicably happy because of the large number of cultivation methods. This was because the more cultivation methods there were, the more aspects of the mysterious power that were involved. With the help of these cultivation methods, the true appearance of the mysterious power would naturally be more accurate. Under such circumstances, Luo Fan used his mind to continuously absorb the many cultivation methods with his powerful perception. He categorized the cultivation methods in his mind, extracted all aspects of the mysterious power that were involved in the cultivation methods, and piled them up in his mind. Such a process would last for tens of thousands of years. In such a vast area, there were so many living beings, and there were so many civilizations. There would be new cultivation methods being created almost every moment, and even new cultivation systems would be created. In other words, the process of plundering all the cultivation techniques and cultivation systems in this area could be said to be a never-ending process. Even though he had unknowingly been collecting for nearly 100,000 years, Luo Fan still felt that it was a project that would take forever to collect all the cultivation methods. Every time he found a certain number of cultivation methods, there would naturally be a relatively large number of cultivation methods being created in that area. These newly created cultivation methods were all created on the basis of the cultivation methods of the predecessors. Regardless of whether they were crude or exquisite, they would definitely have mysteries that were different from the predecessors. In other words, it was impossible for Luo Fan to give up on them. Roughly speaking, it had been close to 100,000 years, and he had already collected more than 1 trillion cultivation techniques. However, compared to the cultivation techniques in the region, he had only collected 60 to 70% of the total number of cultivation techniques. On this day, Luo Fan sighed and stopped his incessant collection of cultivation technique. Looks like I need to tidy things up first. With this thought in mind, he began to withdraw his mind and immerse himself in his mind. In his mind, the many cultivation methods had already turned into endless books. There were so many that when they were piled together, they had already formed a world. A world of books. Among them, the sky was a book, the earth was a book, the mountains were a book, everything that ran on the ground, flew in the sky, swam in the water, and even the boundless ocean were all books. Some of these books were extremely huge, some were extremely small, some were extremely sturdy, some were extremely fragile, some were extremely thick, and some were extremely thin. The endless books had their own way, and vaguely formed a mysterious balance between the heaven and earth. This caused the heaven and earth to vaguely have rules and laws controlling everything, and there were all kinds of reincarnations pushing the books in them to constantly change. At this moment, Luo Fan immersed himself in the world of the books, and when he looked up, he felt that everything in the world was imprinted in his eyes. There's actually such a change. Looking at all of this, he could not help but feel a little puzzled. After all, this change was not something that he had deliberately mystified. In other words, what he had done back then was merely to send the many cultivation methods into his mind in the form of books. As for why these books had formed this way after that, and why they had become like this, it was completely because the books, or rather, the cultivation methods, had interfered and influenced each other to form this way. To be more specific, perhaps the books themselves, or the mysterious factors contained in the cultivation methods, were at work, and that was why the many cultivation methods had formed this way. This seemed very unbelievable, but in fact it was understandable. The accumulation of a quantitative change would lead to a qualitative change. This logic was reasonable at any level. If it was only a few books or a few cultivation methods, even if there were some slight mysteries in them, it would not lead to a qualitative change that was truly incomprehensible. However, when the number of cultivation methods increased to a certain extent, when the traces of subtle mysteries contained in each cultivation method accumulated and turned into a colossus that was enough to split the heavens and the earth and give birth to all living beings, that kind of change would naturally become uncontrollable. In the end, in Luo Fan's heart, it was only natural for it to form this kind of appearance. Luo Fan stood there quietly with an indescribable expression on his face, and he became even more interested in the mysterious power. Previously, he only wanted to study the mysterious power in order to transcend this world and survive the fifth Great Tribulation. But now, after witnessing the great changes that could be caused by the cultivation method itself, he had shifted his interest to the mysterious power itself. In other words, right now, what he was interested in was the mysterious power itself, and not the hope it represented that it could break through this world and survive this great calamity. Let me see what exactly is so mysterious about this mysterious power. With that thought in mind, he dived into the ocean of books and spread out his perception to observe and comprehend every single book. He sensed the mechanism behind the many books that formed this ocean. All of the books contained traces of mystery. This mystery was extremely faint. Whether it was 1 book, 10 books, 100 books, 1,000 books, or even 10,000 books added together, it was insignificant. It was not enough to produce any effect. However, at this moment, the mystery had become spectacular when trillions and trillions of books were added together. In this world of books, the mystery had already turned into something similar to the great Tao of this world. It directly controlled all the rules and laws of this world, as well as the fate of all the books. Luo Fan read the many books, or rather, read the many cultivation methods in order to achieve his ultimate goal and completely see through the mystery behind them. It was like a living being in the normal world trying to understand the great Tao by observing everything. It went without saying that the difficulty of this task was extremely high. Fortunately, Luo Fan's own cultivation realm was high enough, and his own comprehension had reached an unimaginable level, which was why he was able to grasp the traces within. Otherwise, he would have sunk into the various changes in the world very soon and become muddle-headed. It might even have been difficult for him to break free. Just as Luo Fan was searching for the mysteries hidden within the world of books in his mind, a subtle ripple suddenly appeared in a certain space on the platform. These subtle ripples were very mysterious and obscure. Within those ripples, one could vaguely sense a special existence that resonated with the platform. As the ripples appeared, wisps of mysterious power faintly seeped out from the platform. This power was incomparably obscure and subtle. Even if Luo Fan was still clear-headed, it would still be difficult for him to discover the existence of this power. Not to mention that Luo Fan had withdrawn his spirit and was completely immersed in his own mind, immersed in the ocean of books. This kind of change was completely beyond his senses at this moment. It was gathering towards the void right before his eyes, constantly invading the depths of the void where the fluctuation existed. This process continued, and as time passed, it became more and more severe and obvious. In the end, in just a few decades, that space had changed and a faintly discernible illusory figure gradually appeared in that area. That phantom image was an incomparably beautiful world. In that world, any scene that could be found in the world could be found in it. Amidst the many beautiful sceneries, there was a figure sitting cross-legged in the air. Chapter 21:35. At this moment, the woman seemed to be observing the platform through some kind of method, and a look of excitement appeared on her face. Phone, update fast. Please search. As expected, you've fallen into a state where you forget yourself. A joyful cry came from her mouth. Immediately afterward, a fluctuation that was hundreds of times more powerful than before suddenly erupted from her body. It began to draw upon the power on the platform even more powerfully, causing an even more powerful mysterious power to appear on the platform and blast into the illusory spacetime. With this change, the illusory spacetime began to quickly become real. At a certain moment, as the void trembled violently, it directly appeared and truly descended into this spacetime, this world. At this point, the woman naturally could no longer be obstructed. She let out a soft cry, and as the power in her body surged, she brazenly broke through the spacetime where she was, directly tearing it apart and destroying all the beautiful scenes within it. She directly crossed spacetime and appeared above the platform. After arriving here, the woman took a deep breath, and an extremely satisfied expression appeared on her face. At this moment, there were still all kinds of subtle fluctuations constantly being emitted from her body. These fluctuations were so subtle, so mysterious. As they surged, they constantly permeated the spacetime, constantly resonating with the platform under Luo Fan in a subtle way. With this change, strands of mysterious power continuously poured into her body, causing her strength to begin to increase at a speed visible to the naked eye. This process of improvement was almost endless. Her figure floating in the void became more and more powerful as this change continued, and the aura on her body also became more and more profound. After a while, the woman forcibly stopped this process of cultivation, and the fluctuations emitted from her body gradually retracted. The divine light in her eyes began to condense on Luo Fan, who was on the platform. The woman looked at Luo Fan and murmured, "I still have to thank you. If you hadn't imprisoned me, I wouldn't have known that the power actually had such a magical effect." After she was imprisoned in the spacetime by Luo Fan, she could only wholeheartedly study the brand that she had previously thrown into the platform, hoping to gain something from the brand and improve her strength. In the past, she had occupied the platform, and every move she made could bring about endless mysterious power, causing drastic changes beyond imagination. Naturally, she disdained to study the mysteriousness of the brand. It was precisely because of this that she had always been limited to using the mysterious power. Even if she had done some research, it was only to find out how to unleash the mysterious power's greater power, to create a greater impact, and to cause greater destruction. Now, under Luo Fan's coercion, she could only place her hopes on the brand. She had finally stepped onto the correct path of studying the source of the mysterious power and to study the mysteriousness of the mysterious power. Because of this, everything that had happened before had happened. It was precisely because of this that the woman said that she wanted to thank Luo Fan at this moment. At this moment, the woman no longer felt anger and displeasure towards Luo Fan in her heart. Instead, she felt a subtle sense of gratitude. After all, although Luo Fan's methods were violent, it was precisely because of him that she was able to sense the profoundness of the mysterious power. It was also because of him that she knew that there were so many secrets and so many profundities hidden within the mysterious power. It was also because of this that her strength had improved greatly at this moment. She even seemed to be a step closer to breaking through and attaining the Tao. However, although she felt a subtle sense of gratitude, it did not mean that she would show mercy to Luo Fan and directly give the platform to Luo Fan. On the contrary, it was precisely because she knew the profoundness of the mysterious power that she was even more determined to take back the platform. She wanted to take back the unlimited authority to use the mysterious power that she had previously possessed. After all, just that little imprint was enough to give him such great benefits, allowing his cultivation to improve greatly. If he regained the unlimited mysterious power, and was able to use it limitlessly, then it went without saying how many benefits he could obtain. Under such circumstances, how could she give up just because of a subtle sense of gratitude towards Luo Fan? At this moment, the woman raised her hand and slowly grabbed towards Luo Fan. In front of her, a faintly discernible shadow of a huge palm formed by the mysterious power appeared. This huge palm phantom was completely formed by the condensation of a mysterious power. This power contained a characteristic, which was that it was extremely obscure. Even though she clearly saw the existence of the palm, and saw it slowly reaching towards Luo Fan on the platform, she could not sense the existence of the palm at all. Even the existence that was targeted by the palm could not sense it in the past. This woman would definitely not have been able to use such a subtle method. It was only now that she had a deeper understanding of the mysterious power and had a more subtle control over it that she could do this. Just this change alone was enough to show how great her improvement was. The palm shadow had already penetrated the defense of the platform and reached Luo Fan's side. It wrapped around Luo Fan and slowly shrank. Although it was only a shadow, the palm was still formed by the mysterious power after all. Under normal circumstances, if this palm was placed in a perfect world, it would definitely be enough to cause the world to flip and completely destroy everything in the world. Therefore, one could imagine that if Luo Fan were to be caught by this palm, the consequences would definitely be unbearable for him. At this moment, when the woman's face was filled with joy, Luo Fan suddenly opened his eyes. As he opened his eyes, the platform shook and an extremely powerful mysterious power instantly destroyed the palm. It even went a step further and directly rushed up, destroying the fluctuations around the woman's body and the mysterious power contained in her body. Even the mark that the woman had left in her body was quickly washed away, and the traces of the mysterious power on it started to quickly dim. At this moment, the woman suddenly screamed, "No! Leave some for me. Leave some for me. I won't dare to do it again. I won't dare to do it again." Her movements were so swift and her begging was so straightforward and decisive that it made one suspect that she had actually been prepared to beg for mercy a long time ago. At this moment, Luo Fan frowned and stopped what he was doing. He left some traces of the mysterious power on the woman's mark and just stopped there. At this moment, the woman heaved a sigh of relief and said, "As long as you leave some traces on me, I won't do anything to you anymore. I'll even admit to others that you're the successor of the Guardian platform." "You seem to have been prepared for a long time," Luo Fan said indifferently at this moment. Hearing his words, the woman's body trembled, and a bitter expression appeared on her face. She said, "Of course. No matter what, you're much stronger than me, and you have the protection of the Guardian platform. Although I've found some tricks and obtained some key to my strength, I'm not confident that I can defeat you." Her words were not just perfunctory, but what she really thought. Although the woman's battle experience and knowledge were countless times worse than Luo Fan's, she was still a cultivator who had cultivated to the entering calamity level. Naturally, his intelligence was not weak. Although she had already obtained the essence of the mysterious power, found a way to dig out the deeper mysteries of the mysterious power, and even dug out a more exquisite method of using it, she did not lose her rationality and self-awareness. She was very clear that no matter what advantages she had, no matter how much better she was at using the power than before, after all, her cultivation realm was still there. After all, the gap between her and Luo Fan was so great that it was simply unimaginable. Under such circumstances, how could she have enough confidence to think that she could defeat Luo Fan with this little bit of understanding of the power? Therefore, although she appeared to be so confident and domineering before, in fact, she was already prepared for failure in her heart. That was why she begged for mercy so decisively before. Hearing these words, Luo Fan could not help but laugh. Although he had fallen into the world of books to understand the mysteries of the mysterious power, it was still equivalent to being immersed in his own mind. This state seemed to be a state where he forgot about himself and everything else, but it was not to the extent where he could not wake up when his life was threatened. In this way, the development of the matter was very obvious. Because the woman's action of escaping did not affect him much, he did not sense it and naturally did not stop her. However, after that, the woman wanted to take him away and cut off his connection with the platform, which was obviously too great of a threat. Naturally, he sensed it and was able to escape and take action to resist. All of this should not have been difficult for the woman to think of, but she did not think of it at that time. This could only be described as being blinded by greed. At this moment, the woman looked at Luo Fan pitifully with an expectant expression. "What are you waiting for? Didn't you say that you're going to admit that I'm the successor of this platform to the others?" Luo Fan asked calmly. Actually, as long as I don't resist, you'll be the acknowledged successor," the woman said hesitantly. Hearing this, Luo Fan could not help but smile bitterly. In fact, the reason was that simple. There were so many guardian platforms in this world, or rather, sky-reaching platforms. The difference in strength between them was not too great. Under such circumstances, it was naturally unlikely for an expert to appear who could suppress and rule over everything. Under such circumstances, it was naturally very unlikely for so many platforms to form a tight organization. Without a tight organization, it was naturally impossible for them to be too concerned about the replacement of the platform's owner. Therefore, it could be imagined that if a platform's owner changed and there was no news of the previous owner, it would be enough to put an end to this matter, regardless of whether the previous owner was dead or had willingly acknowledged the other party's authority. Forget it. Since that's the case, you should just cultivate here obediently. Anyway, it doesn't matter if you're here or not. Luo Fan sighed and said. Hearing this, the woman was stunned at first, but then she was overjoyed and said, "Are you really willing to let me cultivate here? If you continue talking nonsense, you'll leave." Luo Fan frowned. No more nonsense, no more nonsense. My name is Shu Si. What's your name?" The woman giggled, but she did not seem to be in awe of Luo Fan. After all, the woman had interacted with Luo Fan before and realized that Luo Fan was not an unreasonable person. Her awe of him had decreased a lot, and she was not afraid of him anymore. At this moment, Luo Fan just closed his eyes and could not be bothered to pay attention to her. Seeing this, Shu Si did not continue to pester him. She immediately opened up a dojo that floated in the void beside the platform and stepped into it. The dojo was constructed from the boundless heavens and earth and time. Every piece of rock and every speck of dust was all-encompassing and contained endless mysteries. It could be said that this dojo alone would be enough to attract the attention of an existence like Luo Fan in any other space-time. If there was someone with a slightly lower cultivation realm, they might even directly rob it and cause a bloodbath. However, in this place, the dojo was nothing more than an ordinary thing. The woman was even a little dissatisfied after opening it up and did not think it was something to be proud of. After stepping into the dojo, Shu Si did not hesitate. She immediately triggered the brand in her body and began to communicate with the mysterious power. With the help of the mysterious power, she further communicated with the platform. She began to guide strands of mysterious power to seep into the dojo from the platform, causing the dojo to constantly evolve and undergo subtle changes. Under these changes, the Taoist right field gradually seeped into the void. Before anyone realized it, it had become a part of the void, a part of the world. It looked more and more like it was formed naturally, and not something created by a cultivator. At this moment, Luo Fan glanced at the dojo and closed his eyes again. His mind was once again immersed in the world of book. He did not seem to have changed much on the surface, but compared to before, he had actually communicated with the mysterious power inside the platform. The mysterious power coiled around him and formed an incomparably tight and powerful defense that protected him from head to toe. He was guarding against something similar to what had just happened. Although Shu Si did not cause any serious consequences just now, that was only because Shu Si was not strong enough. If Shu Si was strong enough, as long as she reached the third tribulation level, the result would not be like this anymore, let alone his level. After all, no matter what, he was in a state where he forgot about himself and the world. Although he had some reaction to the stimulation of the outside world, it could not be compared to his normal state. Under such circumstances, if there was an expert who was decisive enough, the trouble he would be in would be countless times more than under normal circumstances. Naturally, it was impossible to truly destroy him. However, to injure him and force him out of the state of cultivation and comprehension was a piece of cake for him. That was the reason he needed so much mysterious power to hide around him and protect himself. Shu Si did not seem to notice Luo Fan's actions. At this moment, she felt an unprecedented sense of peace and relaxation. This sense of peace and relaxation was so wonderful that she could not help but immerse herself in it. It must be known that in the past, although she became a guardian and received the support of the platform, the responsibility of guarding this area that came with the support also made her heart heavy, making it difficult for her to truly relax. Even if she was cultivating, she still needed to pay attention to the area that the platform radiated and carefully watch out for any abnormalities that might appear in this area. In fact, the reason why she did not have the mood to delve into the profundities and essence of the mysterious power was also because of the heavy responsibility weighing on her heart. However, it was clearly different now. Although she had lost control of the platform, she had also lost the responsibility that came with control. This made her feel relaxed, and she felt that her heart had become clear. In comparison, comprehending the mysterious power had become a layer away, and it was difficult for her to use the mysterious power as she pleased like before. However, it could be said to be an insignificant price to pay. I can finally focus on cultivation. At this moment, Shu Si felt that the entire world seemed to have gone through an earth-shattering change. It became more vivid and wonderful. She occasionally glanced at the figure on the platform, and a gloating look appeared in her eyes. You'll know how heavy this responsibility is in the future. She was putting herself in his shoes, feeling that she had to bear the heavy responsibility that came with occupying the platform. However, she did not know that in Luo Fan's eyes, the platform was just a way for him to comprehend the mysterious power and further comprehend the high and mighty mystery. Why would he care about the responsibility that came with the platform? Chapter 2136. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, millions of years had passed. On this day, Luo Fan's body suddenly emitted a strange and mysterious power. Compared to the mysterious power that he could use with the help of the platform, this mysterious power was simply insignificant. However, with the appearance of this mysterious power, Luo Fan could not help but reveal a satisfied smile on his face. This wisp of mysterious power was also incompatible with the mysterious power that the platform could produce. It was as if they were two completely different things. This change caused Shu Si, who was in the dojo, to suddenly wake up from her cultivation state. What's going on? Why is the guardian platform reacting so violently? Shu Si's expression changed slightly. She turned her eyes and saw through the dojo to see the situation on the platform not far away. The platform looked very calm to everyone else, but only Shu Si, who was extremely familiar with the platform, knew how turbulent the platform was at this moment. The mysterious power was on the verge of going berserk. If it was not for some kind of power restraining the mysterious power from exploding, the mysterious power might have blown the entire platform to pieces. She had never encountered such a situation. Even in the hundreds of millions of years that she had controlled the platform, she had never heard of any platform experiencing such a change. She carefully observed Luo Fan, who was sitting cross-legged on the platform. If there was anyone who could cause such a change, then it was obviously Luo Fan, who was sitting on the platform. When she saw Luo Fan clearly, her expression changed. How is this possible? This is a completely different power, she murmured, her eyes filled with disbelief. At this moment, Luo Fan slowly opened his eyes and lowered his head to look at the platform below. An indescribable joy suddenly appeared on his face. As expected, the power that one condenses and the power that is bestowed are completely different, he murmured. Hearing this, how could Shu Si not know that her guess was correct? In an instant, she left the dojo in a flash, and appeared not far away from Luo Fan. She shouted, "How did you do it?" Luo Fan just smiled and said, "It's not difficult. Although, it takes a little more time." As he spoke, the strands of mysterious energy that emanated from his body suddenly condensed under his control, and they transformed into strands of fine threads that suddenly pierced into the platform below. Crack! An earth-shattering sound of thunder erupted from the platform. The entire platform began to shake violently, as if a huge force had enveloped the platform and caused it to shake violently. This commotion did not only affect the platform, but it also spread out in all directions. 100 miles, 1,000 miles, 10,000 miles, 1,000,000 miles, 10,000,000 miles, 1,000,000,000,000 miles, 1 light year, 100 light years, 1,000 light years, 10,000 light years, 100,000,000 light years. Finally, it spread to all the areas guarded by the platform. In other words, it spread to all the areas that the platform's power radiated. This was a vast area that covered an unknown amount of space. In this boundless area, heaven and earth seemed to be grabbed by a huge hand and shook continuously. There were also some subtle muffled sounds that were constantly produced from the depths of the void and spread to the ears of all living beings in this area, including those that had no ears and could not hear. There were countless races and civilizations in this area. At this moment, there were billions of speculations from various civilizations. All sorts of disturbances were born. Following this disturbance, the area that was already not very peaceful became even more chaotic. Only Luo Fan could clearly sense all these changes. Although Shu Si could form a subtle connection with the platform through her imprint and sense the various changes on the platform, she was no longer the owner of the platform after all. Naturally, it was difficult for her to sense the situation in all areas within the range of the platform through the platform. However, it was obvious that Luo Fan could not be concerned about the changes in the range of the platform at this moment. To him, it was more important for him to refine the platform. That's right, what he was doing now was nothing else but to refine the platform. Leaving the imprint inside the platform could be considered as barely establishing a connection with the platform and being able to control it and borrow its power. However, that was only the preliminary establishment of the connection, and not the actual refining of the platform. It could be said that his current relationship with the platform was actually just a level deeper than the relationship between the owners of the other platforms in this world and the platform. In essence, there was still no change. And it was obvious that the relationship between the owners of the platforms and the platform was not a true refinement. After all, if the platform was truly refined, it would be the owner of the platform, and the two were almost inseparable. Even if it was Luo Fan, if he wanted to seize the platform, the only way was to completely erase the owner of the platform. It went without saying how Luo Fan had obtained the platform previously. Under such circumstances, how could they be considered to have completely refined the platform? There was only one way to completely refine the platform, and that was to leave one's imprint in the deepest part of the platform. Then, one's power would become the platform's power, and one's will would become the platform's will. Only by achieving this step could it be considered a success. If he could do that, then the secrets of the platform would be completely revealed to him. He would be able to understand and study the platform in a way that was 1,000 times easier than before. After all, if he had truly refined the platform, the connection between him and the platform would be countless times closer. At that time, his will would naturally receive feedback from the platform, and his thoughts would also be echoed by the platform. If he wanted to understand the secrets of the platform would naturally open up to him. At that time, he would be one step closer to the mysterious existence that was unique to this world. With such a goal in mind, he would not hesitate even if his means would completely destroy this region that spanned billions and trillions of light-years, not to mention that it was just a little bit of chaos in this region. Although he had only just condensed that mysterious power, compared to the platform, Luo Fan already had an unimaginable advantage. After all, no matter how powerful the platform was, no matter how much mysterious power it possessed, it was still just a platform, and it could not even mobilize that mysterious power to achieve some precise goals. Under such circumstances, facing a cultivation expert like Luo Fan, who could easily play around with power and make any trace of power unleash the effect of hundreds of millions of times, the platform was at a great disadvantage. Under Luo Fan's control, that mysterious power kept shuttling between the cracks of the platform. Not long after, it had brazenly passed through the depth that he had previously left a mark on it, and it continued to pass deeper and deeper into the platform. During this process, he kept making the mysterious power bypass the mysterious power of the platform itself. The technique was hundreds of millions of times more exquisite and mysterious than a butcher dismembering an ox. If a butcher saw Luo Fan's current method of controlling this power, he would definitely throw away the knife that he had used for more than a decade and directly kneel before him. As the mysterious power continued to penetrate deeper, the shaking of the platform became more and more intense. It even caused cracks to appear in the space-time around the platform, causing the laws to constantly fluctuate, creating an increasingly intense chaos. Endless light and shadows appeared in the surroundings at this moment, twisting, turbulent, and changing. Even the great Tao that Luo Fan had previously sensed, that even a single glance from Luo Fan had started to distort subtly at a certain location. This change had long surpassed what Xu Si could endure. Although she had been cultivating hard for so many years, her foundation was still there. At this point, she could only be considered to have truly stabilized her cultivation as a tribulation initiation powerhouse. Faced with this terrifying change that affected who knows how many regions, how could she endure it? At this moment, when she saw that the changes around her were getting stronger and stronger, she finally snorted in dissatisfaction. She turned around and quickly fled into the distance. Although her cultivation was much lower than Luo Fan's, she was still a tribulation initiation powerhouse, after all. Her speed was still extremely shocking. In the short span of a few breaths, she had already traversed a distance of an unknown number of trillions of light-years, and had crossed the boundary of a large world. At this point, Although she could still feel the tremors and the power of the changes coming from the platform, it finally no longer affected her. After stopping, she turned to look at the platform. Relying on the connection between her imprint and the platform, even though her vision could not penetrate such a long distance to see the situation on the platform, she could still vaguely sense everything that was happening there and discover the various changes that were happening on the platform. What is he doing? Does he want to destroy the platform? This was the thought in the woman's mind at this moment. After having this thought, she faintly felt regret in her heart. She regretted giving the platform to Luo Fan so easily back then. After all, she had guarded this region for billions of years, and her feelings for this region had already been established. Seeing that the platform might be destroyed, and that it might bring great damage to this vast area, she was in a rather bad mood. However, obviously, she could only think about it at this moment. After all, for Luo Fan, her strength was really not enough at all. Not to mention what she thought now, even if she did not want to sit back and watch the platform be occupied, what could she do? At this moment, a strange fluctuation was transmitted from a distant region to this region. To be more specific, it was transmitted to the platform in this region. Shu Si, what are you doing? Do you want to destroy heaven and earth? This was a series of questions. All the fluctuations were similar. Some knew Shu Si and some didn't. However, regardless of whether they knew her or not, they were currently quite dissatisfied. At this moment, Shu Si also sensed the fluctuations transmitted to the platform through the connection between her mark and the platform. She could not help but feel a little anxious. She immediately shouted, "It's not me. It's a cultivator who ascended from the bottom of the world. He took over my guardian platform, and now all of this is his doing." She tried her best to transmit these thoughts to the platform through the mark, and then through the platform to the other platforms, so that those who questioned her would know the truth. Unfortunately, even though she had the imprint and was able to form a connection with the platform, the connection was clearly limited. The fact that she was able to receive the information that the platform had received through this connection was already quite mysterious and had many wondrous uses. How could she let the platform directly transmit her thoughts as if she was really controlling the platform? Therefore, the information she sent out was like a clay ox entering the sea, and there was no response at all. The fluctuations transmitted from all directions continued to pour into the platform, and they continued to question her. Shu Si tried hard for a long time, but she finally realized that her efforts were futile. She could not help but sigh. "I hope you can find out that something is wrong and take action as soon as possible. Otherwise..." She sighed and quietly floated there with an unconcealable conflicted expression on her face. At this moment, those questions were continuously raised and lasted for several hours. Only when the tremors on the platform had reached a worrisome level did the fluctuations disappear. Soon after, as the fluctuations disappeared, waves of mysterious power began to surge towards this area from all directions. However, these mysterious powers were not targeting the platform, but the area that the platform radiated. They were targeting the vast area that no one knew how many worlds were added together. After these mysterious powers entered this area, they began to seep into the depths of the laws of the world. They formed an indescribable support for these laws, time and space, causing the tremors in these areas to continuously decrease. Roughly speaking, there were only a few thousand mysterious powers that surged into these areas. Among these thousands of mysterious energies, there were many that disliked each other. In fact, just the contact between the mysterious energies would cause them to clash and fight with each other. Under such circumstances, even though their choice had stabilized this region by quite a bit, it was still not enough. But in the end, it made this area even more dangerous. Moreover, the battle between the mysterious powers was even more terrifying than the battle between ordinary powers. As the two mysterious powers collided, almost large areas of space and time were destroyed. mountains and rivers were reduced to nothingness, and deep pits that reached all the way to the bottom appeared on the ground. This deepened the disaster for the living beings living in this area. Shu Si, who had sensed some changes, had an ugly expression on her face. What are they trying to do? Isn't the most important thing to do now to stabilize the situation here? What are they fighting for now? She said angrily. She could sense the chaos from where she was, which was enough to show how serious the chaos was. Such a serious chaos felt even more dangerous than letting the area continue to tremble. It was a pity that she had no right to speak about all of this. The only thing she could do now was to vent her anger here. Not only would Luo Fan ignore her, but the other protectors would also not bother to pay attention to her. At this moment, facing such a situation, Luo Fan did not care about the arrival of the mysterious powers at all. He was only focused on refining the platform. It wasn't easy to use his own mysterious power to replace the mysterious power within the platform and fuse himself with the mysterious platform. In particular, it was even more so when he could not understand the true profundity of the platform at all. At this moment, Luo Fan's mysterious power had brazenly penetrated the obstruction of the endless mysterious power in the platform and arrived at the deepest part of the platform. He arrived at the infinite runes on the platform and the countless lines that were outlined by the endless mysterious power. But even so, he was still extremely far away from truly refining the platform. Luo Fan had long expected this situation. At this moment, he manipulated the mysterious power that he had comprehended from the world of books to continuously attack the mysterious power that existed in the depths of the platform. It seeped in bit by bit and replaced the mysterious power with great difficulty. This was an unimaginably huge project, and it would take an extremely long time to complete it. Regarding this, Luo Fan was already clear about it. However, he was not discouraged at all, nor was he worried that his actions would be obstructed. After all, the power of the platform itself was enough to make any living being in this world fearful. Even if there was a problem here, the living beings in other areas would definitely not dare to step into this area to stop him. Chapter 2137. What the hell are you guys doing? The most important thing right now is not the enmity between you guys. At this moment, Shu Si finally could not hold it in any longer. She let out a loud roar, and with the help of the mysterious power, her voice was transmitted to this region that covered an unknown amount of space. The mysterious power was mysterious after all. With Shu Si's current ability, it was already her limit to transmit her voice to several large worlds. However, with the help of the mysterious power, her voice forcibly passed through hundreds of large worlds and finally reached the area affected by the many fighting mysterious powers. The owners of the mysterious powers could use this mysterious power to sense the other mysterious powers. Since the owners of the other mysterious powers were her enemies, they could naturally sense what was happening in these areas. In other words, they could hear Shu Si's words. At this moment, a voice came from the mysterious power. Shu Si? What's wrong with you? Weren't you the one who caused all these disasters on the Guardian platform? Of course it wasn't me. It was my successor, Shu Si said angrily. This was too obvious, all right? How dare they suspect her now? However, in the end, she still had quite a bit of integrity. Even at this time, she still abided by the promise she had made with Luo Fan. She acknowledged Luo Fan as her successor like the others, rather than forcibly snatching him from her hands. Of course, aside from keeping her promise, perhaps there was another important reason. That was, admitting that she was in control of the platform and letting other cultivators forcibly take it away and expel her was simply too shameful. Hearing this, the Guardians came to a sudden realization. They weren't familiar with Shu Si, so most of them naturally didn't care if Shu Si was in control of all this, nor did they care why Shu Si would pass the Guardian platform to another cultivator. In fact, many cultivators actually didn't care about what would happen to this area. They only cared about what would happen to their enemies. Only one cultivator who was somewhat acquainted with Shu Si asked, "What's going on? Didn't you value the guardian's identity a lot? Why would you suddenly pass it on to someone else?" "I'm just tired. Besides, this isn't the time to talk about this. If you continue to do this, this area will be gone before my successor can show his might," Shu Si said at this moment. That's right. Hearing this, no one cared about Shu Si anymore. "Hey! What's wrong with you guys? Have you forgotten your responsibilities?" Shu Si was even more displeased when she saw this and shouted loudly. "Of course we have not forgotten our duty. However, our responsibility doesn't lie in your area. This area is actually the responsibility of you and your successor. It's fine if you're not grateful for our help, but you're actually grumbling here." A cold and arrogant voice was transmitted through the mysterious power, causing Shu Si's body to feel uncomfortable. "That's right, it's a favor for us to help, it's our duty not to help," another protector said. Hearing this, Shu Si could not help but be stunned. She was momentarily speechless. In fact, it was just as the protectors had said. They had no obligation to help this area. Their actions now were already a sign of their responsibility. As for turning this place into a battlefield to fight, she, who had messed up this area, had no right to criticize them. At this moment, the protectors had already thrown Shu Si to the side and continued to work hard to defend themselves against the other protectors. As they fought, time and space in this area were twisted apart. The earth cracked, the mountains turned into powder, all living beings were destroyed, civilizations collapsed, and cultivators fell into a doomsday disaster. It was a scene of the end of the world. Just from this change alone, the number of living beings that died could be calculated in the trillions. Moreover, this number was still increasing at an unimaginable speed. It could be said that this area had become a land of despair for living beings. Almost every living being was in pain, wailing, and powerlessly cursing the heavens and the earth. Cursing everything they could think of. At this moment, on the central Guardian platform, Luo Fan was still working hard to refine the platform. He did not pay any attention to the changes in this area at all. Shu Si was stunned for a long time. In the end, she finally returned to her senses from the endless wailing and pain. In the end, she gritted her teeth, turned around, and flew in the direction of the platform. In other words, she quickly flew in the direction of Luo Fan. The closer she got to the platform, the more the space-time trembled and the laws became chaotic. Normally, with Shu Si's strength, it was impossible for her to get close to the platform. However, at this moment, due to the agitation in her heart, she recklessly charged towards the platform. During this process, her body suffered endless impact. The traces of mysterious power that she grasped frantically gathered around her, protecting her body and resisting the various terrifying changes in the surroundings. During this process, blood continuously gushed out of her pores. Her flesh and blood were constantly being torn apart and devoured by the surrounding space-time, turning into powder and disappearing without a trace. Of course, she was also a tribulation stage powerhouse, after all. It went without saying how powerful her vitality was. During this process, her body was recovering at every moment. Flesh and blood grew, blood was produced, and power was born out of thin air. She did everything she could to recover her body and strengthen her power as she worked hard to get closer to the platform. As she put her life on the line, her body began to rapidly approach the platform. In the end, she finally arrived at a position that was only a light year away from the platform. When she arrived here, the space-time in front of her no longer had any traces of normal space-time. All the boundaries and shackles of the heavens and earths hidden in the space-time had been broken. All the heavens and earths were mixed together. All the power of the heavens and earths gushed out from the heavens and earths without reservation, intertwining with the power that gushed out from the other heavens and earths, forming a terrifying chaos. An astonishing power erupted, enough to kill, block, and destroy everything. Facing such a scene, even Shu Si had no way of passing through it. After all, to her, the space-time in front of her would instantly turn into powder and disappear without a trace if she entered it alone. Under such circumstances, she was more determined to risk her life than before, and it was impossible for her to barge into it directly. After all, risking her life was one thing, but there had to be value in it. At the very least, she had to achieve the result she wanted. Losing one's life for nothing and abandoning everything for nothing was not something most people would do, let alone a cultivator like her. Seeing that there was such a powerful obstruction in front of her, and the scene behind her that was like hell on earth, Shu Si's heart was filled with inexplicable hesitation. In the end, she roared furiously, "Aren't you a guardian? Why aren't you shouldering your responsibilities?" Her roar, which was wrapped in a mysterious power, was directly sent into the chaos in front of her and transmitted to the platform. It was only a light year, which was not considered far for this woman. It was even more so for the mysterious power that she controlled. Therefore, the voice actually penetrated the space-time in the terrifying chaos and reached Luo Fan directly, where he heard it. Although the voice was already greatly exhausted, and even became undetectable, it was still delivered to Luo Fan in the end. Hearing this voice, Luo Fan's ears twitched. In a flash, he had already used the platform's power to scan the entire area and finally locked onto Shu Si, who was a light year away. Hearing this voice, Luo Fan's ears twitched. With the help of the platform's power, he scanned the entire area and finally locked onto Shu Si, who was a light year away. He also saw the extremely stubborn emotions in her eyes. At that moment, he could not help but sigh and say, "The situation now is not something that I can interfere with, right?" When he saw the stubbornness in her eyes, he couldn't help but sigh and say, "The current situation is no longer something that I can interfere with, right?" His voice directly penetrated the chaos in the surroundings and rang in Shu Si's ears, allowing her to hear it clearly. To Shu Si, having a reaction was the best reaction. She immediately said anxiously, "Why can't you interfere? As long as you stop and let this area return to normal, they naturally won't have a reason to interfere and will naturally retreat." "That's not necessarily true. If I restore peace here, they will use the reason that I've committed endless sins and need to be punished to attack me. It's even more impossible for them to retreat. In that case, this place will lose the chaos, and I won't have any defense. Won't the outcome be even worse?" said Luo Fan. Of course, he was just casually making up an excuse. After all, he had already refined the platform. Although it seemed like it would take forever, he was still improving bit by bit. Under such circumstances, how could he give up? Shu Si was at a loss when she heard what he said. Although Luo Fan had just casually found a reason, and it could even be said to be an excuse, she knew that the situation that Luo Fan had mentioned was extremely likely to happen. It was indeed possible that those guardians would continue to stay here with the excuse of wanting to punish Luo Fan and use this place as a battlefield to resolve their conflicts. After all, it was too difficult for them to find a battlefield normally. Moreover, it was unacceptable for them to use the area they were guarding as a battlefield. Although they appeared to be so cruel and heartless in this area, they were not much worse than Shu Si in their respective areas of protection. In addition to abiding by their own duties, more importantly, their attitude towards that area determined the platform's attitude towards them. The better they treated that area, the better the platform treated them. For example, if they did what Shu Si did, even if they left the platform, it would still respond to their summons. Just like Shu Si at this time. With such a background, how could they easily let go of such an excellent battlefield in the area where Luo Fan was? Then you should expel them. This is your territory now. Are you willing to watch this area be destroyed? Shu Si said anxiously at this moment. This place will not be destroyed. Luo Fan said at this moment. This area and the Guardian platform, which was also the sky-reaching platform, were almost one. As long as the platform did not disappear, the surrounding area could eventually recover, no matter how thoroughly it was destroyed. As for the living beings in this area, it was not a problem for Luofan. It was not only because he could resurrect these living beings at any time and restore them to their original appearance. It was also because these living beings were simply ephemeral in his eyes. Nowadays, even an ordinary cultivation session might take tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, and even a deep seclusion session might take hundreds of millions of years, or even billions of years. Under such circumstances, living beings with a lifespan of less than 100 years would only live for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of millions of years at most after cultivation. To him, what was the difference between living beings that were ephemeral and ephemeral? In his opinion, dying now and dying millions of years later was just the difference between dying in the blink of an eye and dying in the next blink of an eye. In this case, how could he care about the life and death of these living beings? How could he be moved because of their life and death? In fact, this was the mentality of almost all the guardians. It was because of this mentality that they could attack without any scruples at this time. It could even be said that if Shu Si had not been the guardian of this area for hundreds of millions of years, her mentality towards the living beings in this area would not be too different. She still had the mentality of viewing them as ants, and she also did not care when their ephemeral lives would be lost. This kind of mentality was abhorrent to ordinary living beings. Perhaps if ordinary mortals knew about this, they would feel extremely disgusted and even hate them and treat them like demons. However, this was a mentality that one would naturally have when they reached a certain level. As for the unchanging mentality, no matter what level one reached, one's mentality would be the same as an ordinary person's, and they would still be able to see ordinary people as their own kind, and they would still be able to grieve and cry over the death of ordinary people. Not to mention that it was impossible for such a cultivator to exist. Even if such a cultivator did exist, he would not be able to live for long. Different levels of power required different levels of insight and different levels of mentality. Using the mentality of an ordinary person to control the power that could destroy millions of worlds was as absurd as a baby trying to control the switch of a nuclear weapon. If one day, due to the change in mentality, one might be able to harm others and oneself, not to mention, the mentality of an ordinary person did not mean that they had the heart of immortality. Without this heart of immortality, living would only be a torture, and they would kill themselves sooner or later. In other words, even if one's cultivation realm rose to an unimaginable level, one could still maintain the mentality of an ordinary person. This was something that only mortals could imagine. What about them? What about those living beings? They are also your people, right? Don't you care about their lives? At this moment, Shu Si had already lost her normal mentality, and she yelled loudly. Those living beings only live for a day and die at dusk. Do you think that if I don't interfere, they will live for a long time? Luo Fan said. It's only a short time for us. For them, it's a lifetime. Shu Si was still unwilling to let it go. Don't worry, I can just revive them after this. Anyway, this is just a small matter. Luo Fan couldn't stand being annoyed by her, so he sighed and said. Hearing this, Shu Si was stunned. At this moment, she realized that her mentality seemed to have been influenced by some kind of emotion. She actually did not think of such a simple thing before. Indeed, as long as those living beings were revived after this, wouldn't it be fine? Even she could easily do this with the help of that platform. Why did she not think of this at all? Seeing that Shu Si had calmed down and was lost in thought, Luo Fan's heart moved. A mysterious force was sent through the boundless chaos and directly wrapped around Shu Si. With another push, Shu Si was sent to the place where the chaos was not as intense. When Shu Si returned to her senses, she realized that she was in a place that was only slightly shaking. In an extremely distant place where even light had not reached, there was an extremely chaotic aura coming from afar. At this moment, She knew that she had received the favor of that platform's owner. "Forget it, I don't care about these things anymore." She sighed and moved, directly stepping into the depths of the void. At this moment, she released the mysterious force that she controlled and began to create a normal space around her. In other words, a dojo was created. With her abilities, this small matter was naturally not a problem. Especially with the help of the mysterious force, everything was even simpler. After the dojo was built, her mysterious power seeped out and directly separated the dojo from the outside world, isolating it from the outside world. The subtle vibrations that were constantly transmitted from outside the dojo completely disappeared. Chapter 2138. Amidst this chaotic calm, this region that spanned an unknown number of large worlds continued to collapse. The civilizations within were continuously shattered, and the living beings within were continuously erased. The scene of the end of the world continued to spread. Gradually, the entire region turned into a chaotic light. The world, energy, laws, and everything else on a deeper level gradually mixed together, forming an indescribable chaos from the beginning until now. Only tens of thousands of years had passed. In this chaos, the protectors in various directions did not have any intention of stopping. Instead, they continued to use the mysterious power to treat this place as a battlefield, constantly resolving the various conflicts that had accumulated over countless years. Moreover, as the news gradually spread, not only did the protectors in the vicinity send their mysterious power over to resolve their conflicts, but the protectors that were not nearby also sent their mysterious power over to resolve their conflicts. In this way, this region gradually became a communication center for the protectors in a certain form. If this place was a little more peaceful, it might become the true core. However, it was clear that all of this was a great disaster for the civilizations in this region. Not only was it a disaster for the civilizations in this region, but it was also a disaster for the living beings in the boundless world within this region. Originally, the cultivators in the many lower worlds were constantly pursuing transcendence. They pursued to be able to cross the barriers of the world and descend into this world that was countless times more vast and vast than the lower world. However, even though they'd achieved their goals in this calamity, they'd also paid with their lives in order to achieve their goals. They'd become a part of the chaos, and they'd been completely minced into pieces and assimilated into the boundless chaos. Amidst the chaos, only two locations remained intact. One of them was none other than the guardian platform that guarded this region. In other words, it was the sky-reaching platform that Luo Fan was continuously refining. After all, the mysterious power that this platform possessed was not inferior to the mysterious power of the other platforms at all. Under such circumstances, this platform naturally had enough ability to resist the various mysterious powers that the other platforms sent over. In other words, it was impossible for the other mysterious powers to invade the range of this platform, so it was naturally impossible for them to cause chaos in this region. Of course, it was only on this platform. Because the platform itself was currently resisting Luo Fan's refinement, the region near this platform had almost completely destroyed it with its own power and became absolutely chaotic. There was no need for the other mysterious powers to take effect at all. As for the second location, it was the place where Shu Si was located. Compared to the platform that Luo Fan was on, where the other mysterious powers could not invade and damage it at all, the dojo that Shu Si was at was different. After all, the mysterious power that Shu Si grasped was insignificant. Compared to the protectors that controlled the platform, this power could not be more insignificant. If they were willing, they could charge over forcefully and easily crush her mysterious power. The reason why the dojo was still intact under such circumstances was that the protectors were unwilling to do so. After all, Shu Si was a former guardian no matter what, even though she didn't have much contact with the other guardians. Although she did not have much contact with the other protectors, this also meant that there was not much conflict between her and the other protectors. In the absence of conflict, The protectors were still willing to give her some face and leave her some space for herself. It was precisely because of this reason that this dojo was still able to remain unscathed under the circumstances that countless large areas of the world had become chaotic. It was even to the extent that it was able to absorb the profundities of various mysterious powers through the mysterious power stirred up by the chaos in this area, and then deepen its control over the mysterious power and raise its own cultivation realm. Of course, this was only temporary. If the Guardians were to fight, these original concerns would naturally be gradually thrown aside by them. The face that they originally gave Shu Si was naturally thrown away in the process. Therefore, although this dojo could be said to be in good condition for the time being, it was only temporary. With the passage of time, this dojo would eventually be destroyed one day. The only thing that needed to be puzzled was when it would happen. Shu Si did not think too much about this. Although she had already thought it through and understood that the destruction of this region was only temporary, and everything would be restored once the matter was over, the protector mentality that she had accumulated over the years still made her feel extremely uncomfortable. At this time, she could only completely immerse herself in comprehending the mysterious power in order to maintain her mental balance and not do stupid things like stopping the other protectors in the past. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, another 10,000 years had passed. In the past 10,000 years, the number of protectors that joined this region to resolve conflicts had exceeded 10 million. The mysterious power of so many protectors crisscrossed, fought, and schemed against each other. In the process, all sorts of unimaginable powers were triggered, and the appearance of this region was gradually changed. This change naturally pushed this region into an even more chaotic abyss. However, the result of this advancement was to gradually produce a subtle order in this region, gradually giving birth to all sorts of living beings and civilizations that were born because of the chaos. This was obviously a manifestation of things going in the opposite direction when they reached an extreme. One day, a certain chaotic civilization under the control of a mysterious power swept across the region where Shu Si's dojo was located. As they clashed, the chaos broke through the boundaries and directly broke the concealment of the dojo hidden in the depths of the chaos, revealing the appearance of the dojo. Compared to normal order, the order that was born from the extreme chaos was similar on the surface, but it was the complete opposite in essence. At this moment, when the dojo appeared in front of the chaotic civilization, it was like a spark falling into a boundless ocean, instantly triggering an intense reaction from the chaotic civilization. In an instant, the various civilizations completely let go of the enmity and conflicts between each other. They directly changed their target and made Shu Si's dojo their target. They frantically pounced on it and began to attack it. They wanted to completely destroy this dojo, completely destroy this thing that was completely different from their chaotic civilization, and return the universe to the appearance that they were most familiar with. As for this, if the protector used his mysterious power to control and stop it, then naturally nothing would happen. However, it was obvious that the protectors would give Shu Si some face and not take the initiative to attack Shu Si's dojo. However, that was all. They naturally couldn't be bothered with the spontaneous evolution of this chaotic encounter. Obviously, at this moment, the chaotic civilization's attack on the dojo was the evolution of this chaotic nature. In this case, it was naturally impossible for any protectors to intervene in this change. Hence, the final outcome was that this dojo, which had existed steadily in this chaotic region for more than 20,000 years, gradually collapsed and disintegrated due to the conflict between the chaotic civilizations. As the dojo collapsed and disintegrated, the owner of this dojo, Shu Si, did not take any action. He calmly watched as the civilizations from the Chaos era attacked this dojo and destroyed it, causing one of the two order regions in this Chaos era to gradually disappear in the chaos. As for why she did this, the reason was very simple. What's the point of maintaining this dojo? It's just a dojo. If they wanted it, couldn't they just find another place to establish a dojo? What's the point of going against the chaotic general trend for this dojo? This was what she thought. Seeing that the dojo was gradually collapsing, Shu Si sighed and took a step forward. Under the mysterious power that had become much more subtle, her figure flashed and disappeared from the dojo that was about to collapse. She appeared in another region without the chaotic civilizations and prepared to establish another dojo for her to live in and cultivate. At this moment, the moment she disappeared from the dojo lost her support, and its resistance against the chaotic civilizations was instantly reduced by many times. As this happened, the Taoist field suddenly collapsed, and all the order within it was instantly annihilated. At this moment, the cultivators who were fighting in this region with the help of the mysterious power suddenly felt something strange. It was as if some indescribable change had occurred. Shu Si frowned, and a complicated expression appeared in her eyes. At this moment, an indescribable subtle fluctuation suddenly swept out from the guardian platform below Luo Fan. It instantly swept through the entire chaotic region and swept through the tens of millions of mysterious powers. The moment this fluctuation swept past, the many guardians felt their hearts skip a beat. For a moment, they couldn't help but stop what they were doing. They began to control the mysterious power and transform it into a defensive posture, preparing to resist some kind of attack that might appear. At this moment, an indescribably huge mysterious power rushed out from the platform along with the fluctuation. It instantly swept through the entire chaotic region and enveloped all the chaotic civilizations and mysterious powers. The mysterious power that swept out from the platform along with the fluctuation was so huge that it surpassed what the tens of millions of protectors had ever seen in their lives. Even if they activated the platform they were on with all their strength, they would not be able to unleash such a huge mysterious power. In fact, it was only 1% of this mysterious power. In an instant, this terrifying mysterious power snatched away the Guardians' control over their mysterious power. It directly cut off the Guardians' perception of the mysterious power and their perception of this area. Along with this change, the platforms in the tens of millions of locations suddenly began to tremble violently. At the same time, the protectors on the platforms seemed to suffer indescribable pain. Their bodies suddenly spasmed, and they cried out in pain. Some protectors even sprayed out blood from their bodies. The scene was extremely tragic. The protectors themselves controlled a huge amount of mysterious power, and this mysterious power could easily affect the surrounding spacetime and laws. During the process of their incomparable pain, the surrounding spacetime began to change. Cold winds blew, and a sea of blood surged. It looked like the place they were in had suddenly become hell. How can there be such powerful power? Furious roars came from the mouths of the Guardians who could barely speak. Their voices were filled with disbelief and disbelief. These voices spread far away and directly covered the area they were guarding. They even spread out of the area they were guarding, stirring up the wind and clouds, causing the entire region and spacetime to become chaotic. If I knew this would happen, I would have given up on the dojo a long time ago. At this moment, Shu Si said with a regretful expression. However, through his familiarity with the platform, he had already thought of many things and vaguely understood the root cause of all these changes. All of this was probably because the protective instinct of the platform had finally been triggered. As for why it was triggered, perhaps it was because in this area, apart from the platform, there was no longer any place that still had order. In other words, it was precisely because the Tao ground she'd established had been destroyed that this area of countless large worlds had lost all order, and it had finally drawn out the protective instinct of the platform that no other existence had noticed before, causing the platform to release such an inconceivable and mysterious force to resolve all the chaos in this area. How could she not feel regretful when she guessed all of this? If she had thought of this earlier, the chaos in this region might have been restored 10,000 years ago. Naturally, the chaos in the recent 10,000 years would not have appeared. Just as Shu Si was secretly regretting, Luo Fan, who was on the platform, was secretly pleasantly surprised. Because he suddenly sensed that when the platform released that terrifying and mysterious experience, the ability to resist him in the depths of the platform had suddenly shrunk by countless times. Initially, he would have needed decades to make progress, but now, he had obtained it in an instant. In other words, with every breath, he had refined the deepest level of the platform to a level that he would have needed thousands or even tens of thousands of years to reach. To him, such a change was simply a heaven-shaking joy. He did not have time to think about what exactly caused such a change. At this moment, he was making the best use of his time and did everything he could to increase his speed. He worked hard to refine the platform and transform all the depths of the platform into the traces of mysterious power that he had condensed. The terrifying mysterious power had to do a lot of things, and cutting off the connection between the mysterious power and the Guardians was only the first step. Next, the second step was obviously to get rid of the mysterious power and stop it from destroying this region. Next, he had to erase the chaos caused by the mysterious power and restore order to this region. Finally, he had to resurrect everything that had been destroyed because of the chaos. Every single one of these steps was not easy, and it took a lot of time to complete. In other words, at this time, for Luo Fan, his extremely convenient action of refining the platform could naturally last for quite a long time. Luo Fan did not care about all of this. He did not know the reason, so he naturally did not know how much time he had to refine the platform. Therefore, at this time, he seized every moment and used all his energy and mind to replace the power inside the platform. In other words, he had to refine the platform. In this state where every moment was equivalent to decades, his refining of the platform became more and more profound as time passed. In the end, after a year, he finally completely transformed the last structure in the depths of the platform with his mysterious power as the core. This also meant that he had truly completely refined the platform. In that instant, he suddenly felt that he had become one with the platform. It was as if the platform had become an extension of his body. A feeling of flesh and blood merging with the platform came from it, making him feel an indescribable sense of satisfaction. Endless information was instantly transmitted to his heart through the platform, allowing him to instantly understand many things that he had never understood before. At this moment, he understood why he had suddenly obtained such convenience and could refine the platform hundreds of millions of times faster than before. Chapter 2139. I didn't expect it to be like this. After refining the platform completely, the cause and effect of everything naturally appeared in Luo Fan's mind, and he could not help but sigh. Originally, he was just in no mood to care about the actions of the other Guardians, but he did not expect that this kind of indulgence would bring him such amazing benefits in the end. It actually allowed him to directly compress the refining process that would have taken hundreds of millions of years to complete in such a short time. After sighing with emotion, he couldn't help but feel grateful to those Guardians. If it weren't for you guys, I'm afraid I would have to waste a lot of time. He secretly thanked them and took action. He mercilessly divided, scattered, devoured, and fused the mysterious power left by the many Guardians and completely integrated it into this large area. Although he was grateful, he still did what he had to do. That was Luo Fan's way of doing things. Although the actions of the Guardians indirectly brought him considerable benefits, it was not their own will. Under such circumstances, there was naturally no need for him to really thank them. Besides, even if he really thanked them, it did not mean that he had to watch them do whatever they wanted in the protected area of his platform. After all, this area was just a meaningless area to him previously. But now, after he completely refined the platform, the significance of this area had become completely different. This was also what he only understood after he completely refined the platform. In fact, this area was the source of the power of the Guardian platform. That's right, it was not the existence of this area that allowed this area to exist, but the existence of this area that allowed this platform to exist. It was precisely because of the vast space and time in this area, the boundless laws and laws, the infinite heaven and earth, and the endless civilizations mixed together to produce a reaction, that this platform could possess such an incredible and mysterious power, and it could also provide Luo Fan with research resources. After understanding this, how could his feelings about this area not change? Although he couldn't make it his life's goal to guard this area like Shu Si, he couldn't sit back and watch as the other guardians destroyed this area. As the mysterious power that poured into this area was scattered, devoured, and fused, the owners of the mysterious power were heavily injured under some unimaginable mysterious communication. Even the lightest one vomited a mouthful of blood, and the more serious ones even had their bodies directly shattered by the platform under their feet, and it took them a long time to recover. For the Guardians, this was a huge loss, but for this area, it was a great gain. Previously, the mysterious power that the platform automatically emitted had almost eliminated the chaos in this area. At this moment, as the mysterious power fused, the order in this area began to be established at an unimaginable speed. The source of the mysterious power was one of the results of the joint reaction of the various existences in the entire area, and it naturally represented a certain characteristic of these existences. If it was fused into a certain area, it would naturally strengthen that area in all aspects. Therefore, it couldn't be more normal for such a scene to occur. At this time, Luo Fan once again took action. His heart moved slightly, and he raised his hand and made a grabbing motion. Shu Si, who had been quietly watching the evolution of this area in a certain spacetime, felt her entire body tremble. She was wrapped by an irresistible and terrifying force, and with a slight pull, she was pulled to a place that she was very familiar with, but also a little unfamiliar at the same time. It was the platform that she had stayed on for an unknown period of time, but now it had changed a lot. At the same time, she also saw a man who gave her complicated feelings. Luo Fan, what do you plan to do? I don't think you need me for anything. Shu Si looked at Luo Fan and said with a frown. She naturally had a lot of resentment towards Luo Fan. After all, she had watched the place that she had guarded for such a long time be completely destroyed. Even if she knew that it was only temporary and could recover at any time, it was impossible for her not to feel resentful. When Luo Fan heard this, he smiled and said, Naturally, I need your help with something. You should be extremely familiar with this area, right? Then, help me restore this area. When she heard this, Shu Si was stunned, and a blank look appeared in her eyes. After a while, the blank look turned into disbelief, and she cried out, What do you mean? Are you going to return the Guardian platform to me? To a certain extent, you can say that. Luo Fan smiled. When she heard this, Shu Si looked at Luo Fan as if she was looking at a lunatic. From Luo Fan's words, it was obvious that he would rather give up the platform because it was too troublesome to restore this area. This kind of person was simply like the kind of person who would give up because it was too troublesome to wash the peaches of immortality. However, whether this was true or not, and whether Luo Fan was crazy or stupid, Shu Si couldn't give up this opportunity. At this moment she instantly cried out, All right. Come right now. When Luo Fan heard this, he didn't hesitate. He only smiled faintly and grabbed the woman to the platform. He directly opened up the depths of the platform and waited for the woman to leave her mark on it. The woman raised her hand and pointed at the platform without hesitation. Her mark was deeply engraved in the depths of the platform, and it reached a depth that she couldn't reach before. As she left her mark in the depths of the platform, she sensed the mysterious power that she was extremely familiar with. When that mysterious feeling surged up again, she truly believed that what Luo Fan said was true. He actually handed over the ownership of the platform to her. After confirming this, she looked at Luo Fan with an indescribably strange gaze. You really are crazy. After a long time, she came to a conclusion. She suddenly raised her hand and pointed at Luo Fan. A majestic, mysterious power surged out of the platform and turned into a huge hand that slapped towards Luo Fan. Although she couldn't resist Luo Fan when she controlled the platform back then and was easily subdued by Luo Fan, it was only in the past. However, that was only in the past. Compared to back then, she had already made great progress. Her understanding of the mysterious power was also incomparable to before. In this way, the strength that she could display when controlling the mysterious power was at least 100 times stronger than before. Under such circumstances, she was confident that if she attacked Luo Fan now, she would have a great chance of winning. She might even be able to easily subdue him. Faced with such a situation, Luo Fan only had an indescribable expression on his face. He looked at the palm that was rapidly approaching him with a smile that did not seem like a smile. When the palm was about to reach him, he raised his hand and gently beckoned. The palm suddenly collapsed and turned back into a mysterious power. It began to swim around him like an extremely obedient divine dragon. Seeing this scene, Shu Si could not help but have a look of disbelief on her face. How is this possible? Even if she was unwilling to admit that Luo Fan could remain unscathed under her attack, she knew that it was highly possible. After all, although Luo Fan's previous actions seemed crazy, she had to admit that Luo Fan was an expert who was many times stronger than her. Even if such an expert only had a little bit of rationality left, it would be enough to make her suffer. No matter how powerful her attack was, it was highly likely that it would fail when facing such an expert. But no matter how she thought about it, Luo Fan could remain unscathed. However, she did not expect that Luo Fan would use such a method to deal with her attack. Have you forgotten what I was doing? Luo Fan smiled faintly. The fact that he was able to give Shu Si the authority to control the platform naturally meant that he was confident that he could subdue any thoughts and actions that Shu Si might take. Directly turning hostile and attacking him was obviously the easiest method to guess out of all the various methods he could think of. As for how he did it, it was even simpler. The platform had already been completely refined by him. In other words, in the depths of all the mysterious powers on the platform, they had been imprinted with his most profound imprint. Under such circumstances, he could naturally control all the mysterious energy on the platform as he wished, including the portion of the mysterious energy that had been imprinted by the woman. After all, the woman had only left her imprint in the depths of the platform. She did not even reach the source of the mysterious power. In this way, no matter how profound her control of the mysterious power seemed to be, it was in fact limited to the surface. In this way, it would be as easy as flipping his hand for Luo Fan to seize the authority to control the mysterious power. What happened just now could not be more natural. Since he made a mistake, he naturally had to be punished. Although Luo Fan already knew that Shu Si would most likely attack him after obtaining the mysterious power, it did not mean that he would forgive such an attack. With a thought, the mysterious power that had almost fused with Shu Si instantly erupted. A terrifying impact instantly erupted from within Shu Si's body. In the blink of an eye, Shu Si's body was blown to pieces. Even the countless fragments were completely annihilated, turning Shu Si into the finest powder in the blink of an eye. With a slight gust of wind, she disappeared without a trace. In the blink of an eye, the platform once again returned to the state where only Luo Fan existed. After a while, a gentle breeze blew past, and bits of fragments began to gather from all directions. Not long after, they had already condensed into a human figure. It was none other than Shu Si. When this figure had just condensed, she was still a little confused, as if she did not know what was going on. When she saw Luo Fan clearly, she could not help but reveal a faint look of fear on her face. Evidently, she had recalled everything that Luo Fan had done before and could not help but feel fear towards him. Faced with such a change, Luo Fan only had an indescribable expression on his face. A faint smile appeared on his face as he said, "This is just a punishment for you. Don't worry, you're still alive. However, this is only this time. If something like this happens again, don't blame me for what I'm going to do." Hearing this, Shu Xi's body trembled, and she almost instinctively nodded. In that instant just now, Luo Fan had completely erased everything apart from the concept of her existence. This included her physical body, her spirit, her life source, and everything else. Although the concept of existence was still left behind, it was only to preserve her own existence. To her, she had truly died once. The fear of death, the indescribable pain, and the sorrow of falling into the deepest nothingness had completely drowned her just now, leaving her no way out. In that instant, she was even completely drowned by the endless negative emotions before her death, and her entire spirit was about to be pulled into the universe of negative emotions. In the end, although Luo Fan had used her concept of existence to revive her, the deep memories had already been deeply engraved in her heart. It was easy to imagine how she felt. If he had been a little slower just now, I would have really died. At this moment, such a thought flashed through Shu Xi's mind. She had not cultivated the concept of existence, and the concept of existence was actually still dependent on her body in reality. In other words, it was impossible for her to recondense her body and mind from the concept of existence and revive herself by herself. In that case, if she sank into that state of death for too long, her concept of existence would naturally gradually collapse, and in the end, it would completely dissipate and she would truly die. With this understanding, she developed a deeper fear of Luo Fan. Regardless of how serious Luo Fan's warning just now was, she could not ignore it anymore. Even if Luo Fan was just casually threatening her, if she committed another crime, he would just scare her again like before, and she would not have the courage to try at all. After all, even if it was just a mere threat, the degree of danger was extremely shocking. If Luo Fan's control of time was not precise enough, she would really die. Seeing that Shu Xi had really become obedient, Luo Fan nodded and said, "All right, let's get started. The faster you are, the faster those living beings and civilizations will recover." Upon hearing this, Shu Xi hurriedly nodded and gradually withdrew her mind from the fear that Luo Fan had brought her before. She gradually shifted her attention to the vast area that the platform guarded. After all, she still had true feelings for this area. Seeing that this area had turned into a completely different order, completely different from before, and that the civilizations, races, and living beings were gradually turning into brand new existences, how could she sit back and do nothing? As she focused her mind, the fear that Luo Fan had planted in her heart before gradually dissipated. In an instant, the light and shadows around her body began to distort and change, and all sorts of strange lights and shadows gradually appeared. These lights and shadows were extremely crude at first, and she could not tell what exactly they were. However, as she concentrated and poured in the mysterious power, these lights and shadows became more and more detailed, and their true appearance and the places they referred to began to gradually reveal themselves. So this is how to use the mysterious power. At this time, Luo Fan was watching from the side, but with his deep control of the mysterious power, he clearly grasped every trick Shu Xi used to use the mysterious power. In an instant, he felt as if his horizons had been broadened, and he felt that his understanding of the mysterious power seemed to have deepened. After all, Shu Xi had controlled the mysterious power for hundreds of millions of years. Even if she did not spend much effort to unearth the deep principles of the mysterious power in the past, she had already reached an unimaginable height in terms of the surface application of the power. The various methods of application, tricks, and principles were not things that Luo Fan could surpass in a short period of time. For example, if Luo Fan wanted to completely resurrect all the civilizations and living beings in this large area and restore all order, He would directly use the mysterious power to cover this area and use the indescribable characteristics of the mysterious power to reverse time and space, directly summon those living beings from the past, resurrect them, and then use their various characteristics to restore the order of this area. This way, it would naturally be able to completely restore this area and resurrect all living beings. However, the amount of mysterious power needed would be so great that even he felt heartache. However, what Shu Si was doing was clearly different. Chapter 2140. The two methods seemed to have the same result. The world would return to order, and all living beings would be revived. However, the mysterious power consumed by the two methods was hundreds of times different, and the technique of using the mysterious power was extremely different. Looking at the means that Shu Si displayed at this time, Luo Fan couldn't help but secretly praise, and in his heart, he was very proud of himself for delegating power to Shu Si. While Luo Fan sensed the technique of using the mysterious power, Shu Si's method gradually progressed, and the many shadows around her gradually became more complete. Gradually, the living beings in the shadows came back to life. For most living beings, they could not even tell where they were right now. They could not tell that they were not in the real world. In this way, they naturally treated their deaths and the fact that they had died as their own illusions and some kind of illusory mental attack. For a moment, they were filled with lingering fear, and they felt inexplicably happy that they had escaped. Only an extremely small number of cultivators whose strength had reached an extremely high level could sense that something was wrong with the situation, and they could use their extraordinary wisdom to deduce what exactly had happened before. In an instant, furious roars sounded from everywhere, and powerful auras swept through the area that they could cover. The scene became messy. However, all of this proved that they had indeed been resurrected. Shu Si did not have the mood to pay attention to these changes. It must be known that the number of living beings that had died in this area had almost exceeded the limit of what could be described with numbers. The number of civilizations and spacetimes had reached a point that ordinary people would feel dizzy just by looking at it. It was easy to imagine how huge of a project it would be to restore the many worlds, restore the endless spacetime, and revive the countless living beings. Even if she worked hard wholeheartedly, she might not be able to complete this task before the time limit was up. How could she still care about the shock in the hearts of the living beings that she had revived? After all, the project was too big. Even with Luo Fan's help, even if she had exhausted all of her efforts and was fully focused on this matter, when she finally completed it, 100,000 years had already passed. At this moment, the light around her body was already layered, and it was so complicated that unless one's vision was as powerful as Luo Fan's, one would not be able to distinguish its specific appearance, let alone distinguish the living beings within it. At this point, Shu Si's entire body was steaming. Boundless mysterious power shuttled and circulated around her body, naturally bringing her endless pressure. Her body was faintly unable to bear it. At this moment, Luo Fan hovered by the side and quietly looked at her. He carefully sensed the mysterious power in her body, and the traces of mysteries that were reflected in the circulation of the mysterious power. These 100,000 years were simply like a sumptuous feast to him, and it allowed his understanding of mysterious energy to unknowingly improve like the difference between the heavens and the earth. As for the methods that Shu Si used, he had already completely grasped them. Right now, if he were to do it again, he would definitely be able to do it more perfectly than Shu Si, and he would be faster as well. After all, he was now the true owner of this platform, and his control over the mysterious power was much greater than Shu Si's. At this moment, Shu Si suddenly opened her eyes and cried out softly. The mysterious power instantly exploded, as if it had been detonated. Boundless mysterious power rushed out in all directions, directly wrapping up the countless shadows around her body. Together with the mysterious power, they were sent out in all directions. In the blink of an eye, they had already been sent out billions of light years away, slowly overlapping with this region. The mysterious power was more exquisite and mystical than all other powers. Although it was a distance of trillions of light years, it was nothing compared to this mysterious power. In just a flash, without the passage of time, they had already completely reached their final destination, reaching the position that the shadows originally corresponded to. At this moment, Shu Xi's body seemed to have become thousands of times taller than before. On the platform she was like a giant that could prop up the heavens and earth. She seemed to be looking down on everything in this world. Immediately after, she let out a soft cry, and the endless space-time trembled. The mysterious power began to produce indescribable changes, and the laws of space-time also began to produce indescribable changes. As this complicated and indescribable change occurred, the space-time that the shadows enveloped in various parts of this region also began to undergo subtle changes. As this change occurred, the shadows and the real world gradually began to fuse. As this happened, the illusions became real, and the real world became illusions. Finally, at a certain moment, when this fusion reached a certain limit, the two began to separate again. After they separated again, the illusions quickly turned into reality, and the real quickly turned into illusions. Just like this, they gradually became polar opposites, and an extremely mysterious scene appeared. The terrifying changes that covered billions of light years were displayed at this moment, and the light effects were enough to shock any cultivator to the point that they could not control themselves. After an unknown period of time, all the changes subsided. At this moment, the shadows that Shu Xi had spent 100,000 years building without rest had completely replaced the many areas that the Guardian platform covered, becoming the reality of these areas. These areas had completely replaced the original appearance of order that was gradually being restored, and the various scenes before this disaster were restored. At this point, Shu Xi finally let out a long breath, and an indescribable sense of relief appeared in her eyes. To her, the difficulty of controlling all these changes was secondary. More importantly, the pressure was really unbearable. Now that everything was finally settled, the pressure was finally completely lifted, so how could she not feel relaxed? Just as she was about to disperse the shadows, Luo Fan interrupted. "It's too much of a waste to disperse just like that. Let me handle it." Hearing this, Shu Xi was taken aback, but she still nodded and said, "All right, what are you going to do?" Before she could finish speaking, Luo Fan had already used the strength of the mysterious power to directly seize control of the shadows. He directly grabbed the shadows, and with a sudden thought, the shadows suddenly condensed, and then suddenly collapsed, turning into countless fragments that began to sprinkle over the entire area. The shadows were originally like shadows, and now that they had shattered into countless fragments, it looked like countless specks of light were sprinkling over the entire area. At the same time, the clouds in the sky above this area began to churn, and endless clouds and mist began to condense. In the blink of an eye, it had already begun to turn into boundless dark clouds. Shortly after, a heavy downpour descended from the sky, as if the heavenly river had been split apart, covering the sky and covering the earth. The heavy downpour and the specks of light fused together, gradually causing the rainwater to undergo some kind of subtle change. Because of this change, the nature of the rainwater seemed to become even more exquisite and mysterious. After the specks of light turned into the rainwater, they fell to the ground and began to fuse with it. The ground was like an extremely dry sponge, frantically absorbing the rainwater, absorbing the traces of nutrients and mysteries within it. Along with this change, the various things that seemed a little illusory due to the transformation from illusory to real began to be nourished once more. Gradually, a strong and resilient aura was released, as if it had been reinforced once more. Seeing this change, Shu Xi had a look of realization on her face. She had already understood what Luo Fan was doing. After this realization, she felt a little ashamed. Ashamed that she actually did not think of doing this. What Luo Fan was doing now was to reintegrate the benefits that had been turned into nothingness during the transformation of the illusory and the various mysterious forces into the world. After all, the original order of the world and the original scenery of the living beings that she had constructed previously were only the various kinds of order and scenery before the disaster. Although this kind of construction was already quite perfect, and could completely restore the various things before the disaster. However, that was only restoring it. After the disaster, although this area had suffered a great disaster and suffered irreparable damage, it could also be said to have obtained considerable benefits. Because of the integration of the various mysterious forces, it could be said to have obtained considerable benefits later on. This allowed the development prospects and development potential of this area to become stronger than before. Under such circumstances, after the transformation of the illusory and the real, the increased potential would naturally be converted into an illusion. If the illusion dissipated, the potential would naturally dissipate along with it. If that was the case, then the calamity this time would have been a waste of time. Xu Si and Luo Fan's actions were naturally equivalent to doing nothing. It was precisely because of this that Luo Fan had completely scattered the illusory figures and integrated the potential that originally belonged to this area back into this area. In this way, although this area had returned to its original appearance on the surface, the potential was completely different from before. It was completely in the state after the disaster. This method was actually not that difficult. Even Xu Si should be able to do it easily. However, it was a pity that Xu Si ultimately did not think of this due to the immense pressure. If it were not for Luo Fan's intervention, she would have completely scattered the illusory figures, along with the incomparably precious potential that was contained within them. After returning all the potential in this area, Luo Fan withdrew the mysterious forces and let out a long breath. Just as he was about to say something, waves of mysterious forces suddenly broke through the surrounding defense of this area and surged towards the inside of this area. The number of these mysterious forces was quite large. There were more than 7 million of them, and among them, all of the mysterious forces belonged to the owners of the tens of millions of mysterious forces that Luo Fan had previously cut off. In other words, among the owners of the tens of millions of mysterious forces, more than 7 million of them were waving their mysterious forces and charging over at this moment. Looking at their aggressive manner, it was obvious that they were not here to reminisce about the past with Luo Fan. At this moment, Xu Si turned pale with fright and shouted, "Oh no, they are coming for revenge." Xu Si was naturally aware of how Luo Fan dealt with the mysterious forces. At this moment, she immediately guessed the purpose of the arrival of more than 7 million mysterious forces. At this moment, she instinctively forgot that she was no longer the owner of this guardian platform. She directly substituted herself as the guardian platform and directly activated the mysterious forces. They turned into more than 7 million mysterious forces and rushed in all directions, intercepting more than 7 million mysterious forces. If it was just a mysterious force, then it naturally wouldn't be a problem for Xu Si, who had the support of the Guardian platform. After all, one sent the mysterious forces over from a boundless distance, and he had to overcome the boundless distance in order to exert some of his strength. On the other hand, the other didn't have to go through so much trouble at all. His foundation was in this area, and he could exert 100% of his strength. There was no doubt about the outcome. However, this time, it wasn't just one, but more than 7 million mysterious forces. With such a huge amount and such terrifying mysterious forces converging together, it was enough to completely destroy a large area without suffering any damage. Under such circumstances, the mysterious forces that Xu Si waved collapsed as soon as they came into contact with the 7 million mysterious forces. They didn't even have much effect on the mysterious forces before they were dispersed and vanished without a trace. As a result, those mysterious forces began to push forward, heading straight for the central platform of this area. At this moment, Luo Fan snorted coldly. With a thought, he directly took over the control of the mysterious forces. In an instant, the mysterious forces that had been dispersed suddenly condensed into more than 7 million mysterious forces. He instantly activated the hidden potential of the mysterious forces and turned them into more than 7 million Luo fans. They blocked in front of the mysterious forces and directly bombarded them. Luo Fan's control over the mysterious forces was not something that Shu Si could compare with. Although it was the same mysterious forces, the power in his hands was worlds apart when compared to the power in Shu Si's hands. Although Shu Si's control of the mysterious forces was extremely ingenious, it ultimately didn't stimulate the potential of the mysterious forces enough. In the face of more than 7 million mysterious forces, the wine cup that couldn't resist at all shattered. However, although the potential of the mysterious forces was not fully stimulated under Luo Fan's control, the stimulation was many times stronger than Shu Si's. Naturally, the power that was derived was also many times stronger than under Shu Si's control. In this way, the 7 million mysterious forces transformed into Luo Fans instantly repelled the 7 million mysterious forces that had rushed into this area, causing those forces to stop charging towards the platform amidst loud rumbling sounds. They could only continuously surge in front of the Luo Fans, trying to eliminate the terrifying power that Luo Fans had sent out and continue charging forward. However, it was clear that Luo Fan wouldn't give them a chance to do so. At this moment, the Luo Fan that was formed by the mysterious forces did not stop moving. He raised his hand and grabbed at the air, lightly pointing his finger and easily dispersing the power that the mysterious forces possessed, so that none of the mysterious forces could continue advancing. "If you know what's good for you, retreat immediately," Luo Fan said at this moment. His voice directly penetrated the endless space-time and was directly sent to where the 7 million mysterious forces were located. It poured into them and was directly sent through the mysterious forces to where the owners of the mysterious forces were. "Humph! Do you think you've already won?" A voice directly blasted towards Luo Fan at this moment through the mysterious forces. This voice didn't have the ability to directly transmit its voice to where Luo Fan was, but it could only be transmitted to the entire area. In an instant, the area was shaken, causing the space-time in this area to start vibrating frantically. All the living creatures in this area heard this terrifying voice that made it difficult for them to control themselves. "There's only one of you, and we have more than 7 million. Just lie there obediently and let each of us vent our frustrations. Otherwise, we wouldn't mind repeating the previous calamity that happened here a few more times." Another voice was heard, mixing with the previous commotion. The scene became even more shocking and terrifying. Along with this voice, the 7 million streams of mysterious energy became even more resolute. The force of the impact became even more powerful, and the might of the energy itself became even more terrifying. Due to this change, Luo Fan that was formed by the 7 million mysterious forces couldn't react in time and was pushed several light years away before it stabilized. "Since you don't want to accept my good intentions, then don't blame me for what I'm going to do," Luo Fan said indifferently at this moment. As he said that, he let out a soft shout and a terrifying mysterious force instantly gushed out from the platform beneath his feet. In the blink of an eye, it traversed the endless space-time and arrived at the edge of this area. It suddenly rose and shot up into the sky, instantly trying to separate this area from the outside world. Obviously, this kind of separation wasn't just limited to space-time. It was more targeted at the mysterious forces. Chapter 2141. At this moment, another wave of mysterious energy surged towards this area from all directions. Compared to the previous mysterious power's goal, which was to enter this area as deep as possible to fight against Luo Fan, these mysterious power that came later had already brewed terrifying power just outside this area. The moment they came into contact with the boundary of the area, their power had already reached its peak. As they erupted, they instantly destroyed the boundless world and spacetime. They even twisted and shattered the laws and laws. Under such a change, the mysterious power controlled by Luo Fan bore the brunt of the impact and directly bore the impact of the endless mysterious power. Under the impact of the numerous mysterious powers, it was on the verge of collapse. It was simply difficult for it to truly converge and completely seal off the area, cutting off the connection between the numerous mysterious powers and their source. Oh, I thought of this method. At this moment, Luo Fan revealed a strange smile. Although this method was a little sudden, it was not difficult to think of. Come on. Let's see what else you have up your sleeves. At this moment, a powerful sound came from the mysterious power and spread throughout the entire area, causing countless sound waves to appear in the area. Due to the agitation of their emotions, there were slight flaws in their control over their own power, causing the sound waves to be augmented with wisps of mysterious power. They naturally gave rise to all sorts of unimaginable changes. They directly condensed into various forms and displayed countless complicated and mysterious scenes in the void. Faced with such changes, Luo Fan's expression did not change at all. However, with a slight thought, a large area began to tremble slightly. The mysterious power itself came from the space-time, laws, living beings, order, and everything else in this area. In the past, he did not understand the essence of the mysterious power, so he could naturally only use this platform to control it. However, now that he had completely understood the essence of this mysterious power, he finally had the possibility to break free from the shackles of the platform and directly control the mysterious power in this entire area. Under his control, these regions gradually underwent subtle changes. Strands of subtle energy began to seep out of everything in this region and gradually gathered in the void. In the end, it turned into a power that was similar to the mysterious power, but it was fundamentally different from the mysterious power. Compared to the mysterious power, this power was naturally many times weaker. However, compared to the mysterious power, it had an indescribable advantage, which was that its foundation was too strong. Everything in this area was its foundation. However much it lost, the foundation would naturally replenish it. If one wanted to go against these powers, it would be the same as going against the overall power of this entire area. Originally, this area was easily destroyed by the mysterious forces that were countless times weaker than these mysterious forces. There was no way for the mysterious forces to resist at all. In fact, the mysterious forces did not even treat this area as a target, but as a byproduct of the battle. Now, in the face of a mysterious power that was many times stronger than those mysterious powers from back then, these powers that had been born from this region had already displayed a sufficiently powerful advantage. Although they had yet to truly come into contact or collide, the momentum of the two was already on par with each other. This might seem like a contradiction, but the principle behind it could not be any simpler. Previously, that region was easily destroyed by the aftermath of the impact of the weak mysterious power, which was equivalent to a large country without any army being easily massacred and destroyed under the oppression of an army that was countless times smaller in number. This situation was naturally extremely normal. But now this area was equivalent to a large country where everyone was a soldier. Every citizen had already picked up a weapon and had gone through countless rigorous training to obtain super-powerful combat strength. In this situation, even if the army was 10 times or 100 times larger, it was still far from the number of citizens of a large country like China. It was obvious that it would fall into a disadvantageous position and gradually be destroyed. Therefore, the current situation of this area seemed contradictory, but it was actually extremely reasonable. The various subtle mysterious powers began to surge at this moment and began to condense into various indescribable states. They began to pounce into the mysterious power, creating an unimaginable conflict with the mysterious power. Amidst the conflict, the power that had condensed in this area was constantly scattered and eliminated. However, it was constantly being reborn and replenished with new power at every moment. Moreover, the replenished power even responded to the damage that the previous power had received, causing the effect of the previous attack to weaken. For those mysterious forces, this situation was simply like encountering a sticky candy bomb that stuck to them. It was an extremely uncomfortable feeling. How is this possible? How can he do this? Impossible. He has only become a guardian for a few 100,000 years. How can he surpass us? Chaotic cries of surprise rang out from the mysterious power, which contained endless shock, disbelief, and an indescribable sense of defeat. You can actually do this? At this moment, Shu Si, who was next to Luo Fan, could not help but reveal a shocked expression. She looked at Luo Fan as if she was looking at an incomprehensible supreme existence. She knew that what Luo Fan had been doing all this time had exceeded her imagination, and these incomprehensible things might have given him an ability that she could not understand. However, she never would have thought that this ability would be so powerful. It could even reach the highest realm of the legendary guardian, completely controlling the area they guarded and becoming the absolute master of that area. That's right, what Luo Fan was doing now was a legend that had existed since ancient times. It was a legend that the Guardian's ability was at the peak. In that legend, if any Guardian could display their ability to the peak, they could become the true, absolute master of the area they guarded. At that time, he would coexist with that region. As long as the world in that region was not destroyed, even if the protective platform was destroyed, even if his existence was completely erased, he would be able to survive. Moreover, he would survive without suffering any injuries. Moreover, once the protector of a certain region attained this realm, then the region they guarded would become impregnable. From then on, no power would be able to threaten that region. It was even to the extent that the destruction of the world would have to depend on whether the ruler of that region agreed to it. Luo Fan listened to Shu Si's words, but his expression was rather indifferent. He did not know that there was such a legend in this world, but if he did, he would not feel that he needed to be moved. This was because, in reality, he had indeed become the master of this area. After he completely grasped the essence of the mysterious power, he had truly grasped the entire area that the platform's power radiated. For him, any power, any rule or law in this area was already under his control. At least, he could control it with the help of the mysterious power. For guardians like Shu Si, this kind of control was enough to make them wake up from their dreams with a smile. It was enough to make them feel that they had nothing else to ask for in their lives. However, for him, who had long been accustomed to deep control, this kind of control was still far from enough. Whether it was the control of the eternal heaven and earth in the second level of the road to Tao Master or the control of the world that he had created, it was far more profound than this kind of control. Under such circumstances, how could he feel excited because of this kind of control? The fact that he did not feel dissatisfied already proved that his will was strong enough and his mentality was perfect enough. At this time, the fighting spirit in the hearts of the masters of the mysterious power gradually began to shrink. Unknowingly, a wave of mysterious power began to retreat and was about to leave this area. Then, a second wave, a third wave, a fourth wave. In just a short period of time, the coalition army formed by more than 7 million guardians had collapsed. Waves of mysterious power began to recede like a tide, constantly surging out of this area. For these guardians, the strength that Luo Fan had shown now was already beyond their imagination. This kind of ability to become a master had made it impossible for them to really hurt him. In this way, it would be useless to continue to entangle here. Under such circumstances, it was simply a performance of extreme stupidity, but it was not the Guardian's style at all. Want to leave now? Seeing that the mysterious power had retreated, Luo Fan did not intend to let them go. He just said lightly. With this sentence, The strange power that filled the infinite spacetime in this area began to surge and chase after the mysterious power. In his eyes, this mysterious power was not just an ordinary power. It represented everything in the world and represented the potential of this area. If these mysterious powers had originally been in their respective platforms and areas, he would have had the urge to seize them. Now that these mysterious powers had been sent over and placed right in front of his mouth, how could he let them go? "Sir, do you want to kill us all?" At this time, angry roars came from the mysterious power. However, from Luo Fan's actions, they could see Luo Fan's murderous intent. Panic and anger arose in their hearts, causing them to roar one by one. It must be known that although Luo Fan had become a master and achieved the achievements that they had all been looking forward to, it was impossible for them to obtain any benefits in this area of Luo Fan's in the long run. However, this did not mean that they were completely unable to resist Luo Fan at this time. The reason why they retreated at this time was because there was not much hope in the future. They were not fleeing like stray dogs. With such a mentality, how could they sit back and watch Luo Fan be so overbearing? Hearing their words, Luo Fan only smiled faintly and said, "More than 7 million of you are not here for a vacation." As he said this, his movements became more and more ferocious, and his attacks against the mysterious power became more and more powerful. Under this kind of attack, the power gathered in this area was greatly damaged, but the mysterious power was also being eliminated bit by bit. It was constantly being scattered and integrated into this area, increasing the potential of this area. During this process, this area became fiercer and fiercer. The power gathered also became more and more condensed, more and more powerful, and its might became more and more terrifying. As a result, the mysterious power naturally left behind more and more in this area. Fight it out with him. Finally, the owner of the mysterious power was truly enraged. With that roar, a mysterious force no longer retreated but charged back and crashed into the depths of the region. It crashed into the endless power and began to release boundless might. It destroyed everything in a frenzy, twisted time and space, destroyed the world, destroyed the laws, and slaughtered all living beings. In the face of such a reaction, Luo Fan only faintly smiled. With a slight thought in his heart, the mysterious energy that permeated the entire area began to slightly condense. In an instant, a portion of it had already begun to condense towards the mysterious energy. In an instant, with a tremble, it had already directly cut off the connection between the mysterious energy and the outside world. As the connection was cut off, the mysterious power suddenly became dispirited and only had an instinctive reaction left. It could no longer be as agile as when it was under the Protector's control. Although the mysterious power could still cause destruction in the surroundings and could still clash with the various mysterious powers in the surroundings, there wasn't much effect left. After being cut up by the mysterious power a few times, it easily scattered the key point. In the end, it completely collapsed and turned into countless fragments that fused with the area. As it fused with the mysterious power, the damage it caused before started to recover. The world returned to order and the dead beings were revived. Everything seemed to be going back in time. Seeing this, the mysterious power was finally truly shocked. Since the mysterious power was so easily cut up and devoured, it meant that Luo Fan had already comprehended the trick to dealing with their mysterious power. This also meant that if they were to stay here for a little longer, the fate of the mysterious force before them might very well be theirs. When they realized this, how could the anger in their hearts from Luo Fan's attitude still remain? All of them pretended to be deaf and started to frantically flee in the direction they came from. If they still had some elegance when they fled before and didn't know that they were stray dogs, then at this moment, the feeling of stray dogs on them was many times stronger than before. Facing such a situation, Luo Fan only faintly smiled. He wasn't worried that they would really escape. "It seems that this method will work," he said calmly. Soon after, the edge of the region, which was currently enduring the repeated attacks from the mysterious energy from the outside world, collapsed and gathered again and again, trembled slightly before suddenly collapsing. It transformed into an endless mysterious energy that began to spew in all directions. In the blink of an eye, it had already formed an isolation layer that was as vast as an unknown number of worlds around the boundary. This isolation layer continued to crumble under the impact of the external mysterious energy. However, it continued to reform under the support of this region, vaguely forming a dynamic balance. Since the mysterious power was condensed from everything in this area, then the mysterious power could naturally be broken down into the mysterious power that was condensed from everything in this area. Compared to the mysterious power was much inferior in quality, but it had an advantage that the mysterious power did not have. That was, its recovery speed was countless times faster than that of the mysterious power. It was precisely because of this that the isolation layer was able to form such a dynamic balance. After all, in Luo Fan's eyes, the mysterious power was countless times weaker than the mysterious power. However, it still possessed some characteristics of the mysterious power. In the eyes of the Guardians who didn't understand the essence of the mysterious power, it was actually quite mysterious. If they wanted to deal with the mysterious power, they could only use a similar method to deal with the mysterious power. Obviously, this method was not targeted, so the effect it could display was naturally quite limited. The final result was that the mysterious power's destruction speed was only a little faster than that of the mysterious power. The recovery speed was countless times faster, but the destruction speed was only a little faster. Under this situation, the dynamic balance that originally couldn't be formed was naturally easily formed. As the dynamic balanced isolation layer was formed, the Guardians' hearts thumped. The effect of the isolation layer formed by the mysterious power was much weaker than the isolation layer formed by the mysterious power, but it still had some effect. At this moment it had just formed, but it had already weakened their perception of the mysterious power that they had sent in. Chapter 2142. At this moment, what the Guardians were worried about happened. The endless mysterious power started to undergo all sorts of indescribable and complicated changes. Amidst these changes, various powers that completely targeted the mysterious power were born. Under this power of interception, the more than 7 million mysterious powers each suffered an indescribable impact. The owners of the mysterious powers, in other words, the Guardians' senses towards the mysterious power that poured into this area were rapidly weakened. Not long after, due to the various changes, the protectors all felt the same feeling they had felt before. The pain of the mysterious power being cut off, the backlash from the platform, and the abnormal movements in the entire area they controlled all swarmed towards them at this moment, causing them to suffer heavy injuries. These Guardians who couldn't swallow their anger, and wanted to go against Luo Fan and make Luo Fan suffer, were all the Guardians who had suffered when Luo Fan cut off the mysterious power back then. They had already suffered such a huge loss before, and the injuries they had suffered had yet to fully recover. Their wounds had only just healed, yet they suffered such a backlash again. The reaction seemed to be even more intense and tragic than before. Boom, 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 incomparably shocking booms sounded from all directions in the world. Space-time collapsed one after another, and the Guardian platforms shook one after another. Even though they were separated by an endless distance, Luo Fan could still easily sense it through the Guardian platforms. Among the more than 7 million Guardians, even the luckiest and strongest Guardians suffered an unimaginable impact during this process. Their bodies exploded, and it took a long time for them to recover. As for the unlucky or weak Guardians, they were even directly sealed by the Guardian platforms. Those who were too unlucky were directly thrown out by the Guardian platforms and deprived of their Guardian identities. This tragic outcome shocked the Guardians who sensed this change. The Guardians who originally wanted to fish in troubled waters and take advantage of the battle between Luo Fan and them finally gave up on this idea completely. At this moment, they retracted their heads deep into their tortoise shells and didn't dare to poke their heads out again. They just reap what they sow. At this moment, Shu Si sighed and said in an extremely aloof tone. She was the original guardian of the area that Luo Fan was in. To her, even though she had lost her identity as a guardian, it wasn't enough for her to completely ignore the deep feelings she had for this area. Under such circumstances, the other guardians attacked this area one after another. Naturally, she hated them to the core. Seeing them suffer misfortune, there was no need to mention the comfort in her heart. Luo Fan didn't care about Shu Si's excitement. At this moment, he just manipulated the strange power that filled the entire area and began to disintegrate the mysterious power that had been cut off. He shattered the mysterious power bit by bit, devoured it bit by bit, and integrated it into this area to enhance the potential of this area and increase the support for the mysterious power in this area. Mysterious power was mysterious power after all. Even if it had been cut off, it was impossible to deal with it easily with its own characteristic. Under such circumstances, even if the strange power was controlled by Luo Fan, it could only speed up the process slightly, but it couldn't complete the devouring process immediately. As for why he could devour the mysterious power so easily before, it was because Luo Fan gathered the power of the entire area together. The current situation was completely different from before. Now, there were more than 7 million mysterious powers waiting for this area to devour. The difficulty of controlling it was countless times greater than before. Luo Fan's expression was extremely calm as he controlled the strange power to disintegrate the mysterious power. During this process, he also constantly comprehended the essence of the mysterious power and carefully dug out the deep mysteries of the mysterious power. After all, although the strange power already contained a trace of the mysterious power, it was only a trace. In the depths of the mysterious power, there were countless more profound mysteries than the strange power. If he wanted to truly understand this mysterious power, and even the mysteries hidden at the extremely high place, he naturally needed to continue working hard and moving forward, but he couldn't be complacent because of this small achievement. Under the effect of the strange power that Luo Fan controlled, the mysterious power was devoured one after another. As each mysterious power was devoured, the area underwent a subtle change. It seemed to become stronger, more real, and more mysterious. Just like that, several tens of thousands of years passed. After several tens of thousands of years, when Luo Fan finally controlled the strange power to completely devour all the mysterious power, the entire area started to tremble slightly. Endless mysterious rays of light appeared in the sky above the area, flowing like water and illuminating the entire area, making the entire area seem sacred and unbelievable. At this moment, faced with this change, Luo Fan only had an indescribable expression on his face as he raised his head to look at the sky. In his eyes, there was a river that flowed endlessly in the void. That river was none other than the supreme mystery that he had only caught a glimpse of in the past. The reason why he could see this mystery now was very simple. It was because the platform beneath his feet had undergone an extremely fundamental transformation. The mysterious power in the platform came from this area that covered an unknown amount of space. In other words, the growth of this area would naturally feed back to the mysterious power in the platform, and this would also naturally feed back to the platform itself. In this way, the reason for this change was very obvious. Naturally, it was because after this entire area had devoured over 7 million mysterious forces, the essence of this area had crossed a certain boundary, and it had finally triggered the platform to cross a certain boundary as well, allowing him to obtain abilities that he didn't have before. This seemed unbelievable, but it was actually very normal. After all, the 7 million mysterious powers were released by the 7 million protectors as they planned to teach Luo Fan a lesson and take revenge on Luo Fan. The amount was so great that although it was not enough to completely hollow out the Protector's platform, it was still enough to create 10 to 20% of the mysterious powers that he could control. Under such circumstances, the total number of over 7 million strands of mysterious energy had obviously reached an unimaginable level. Apart from the fact that they had just recovered from their injuries, one of the main reasons why the Guardians were punished so severely was that they had caused great damage to the platform. With so many mysterious powers completely integrated into this area, one could naturally imagine the great impact it had on this area. I finally see you with my own eyes. Looking at the mysterious long river in the sky, Luo Fan finally let out a long sigh. With a slight thought, his eyes narrowed, and his senses began to quickly extend upwards. He wanted to directly explore the long river and directly plunder the endless mysteries in the long river. If he could directly sense the various things in the long river, he naturally wouldn't need to guard this platform and experience it indirectly through the mysterious powers in the platform. At that time, he could directly immerse himself in the mysterious long river and wholeheartedly comprehend the principles and mysteries within it. Unfortunately, the result was clearly not as good as he expected. Although he could already use his eyes to see the mysterious long river with the help of the platform. However, when his senses probed over, he did not come into contact with any aura that belonged to the mysterious long river at all. In his senses, there was simply nothing there, not even an image existed, let alone using his senses to explore the long river to comprehend the mysteries. As expected, it still doesn't work. After trying hard for millions of times and finally realizing that there was no way, Luo Fan could only sigh and slowly withdraw his senses. After withdrawing his senses, he did not look at the mysterious long river anymore, but cast his gaze in another direction. In that direction that extended in the opposite direction to an extremely far distance away, there was a protector platform quietly standing there. The protector of that platform had now disappeared, and the entire platform was empty. Currently, who knew how many hundreds of millions of cultivators were engaged in a fierce battle around the platform? Evidently, they were fighting for the position of protector. In fact, this kind of thing would inevitably happen after almost every protector platform became empty. The protector platform itself was closely related to the survival of the area it was in. If the protector platform lost its owner, then the defensive ability of the area would naturally be greatly reduced. As for the platform itself, it would also become weaker because of this region. Therefore, every time the protector platform lost its owner, the platform would instinctively attract countless cultivators to compete for the position of protector. Therefore, every time a protector disappeared, the surroundings of the platform would inevitably fall into a long period of fighting. This time, it had only been tens of thousands of years since the protector was chased away by the platform, but it was only the beginning of the fight. According to previous experience, this fight would at least take tens of millions of years. Sure enough, I can only start from this aspect. With the help of the connection between the protector platforms, Luo Fan sensed the platform, and such a thought flashed through his mind. With that thought, he said to Shu Si, "I'll leave this place to you." Shu Si was slightly taken aback. "What do you mean?" As soon as she said this, she realized that the cultivator who had forcefully taken away the protector platform had already disappeared in front of her. Even with the power of the protector platform, she couldn't detect his existence at all. "He left just like that?" Shu Si murmured in disbelief. Luo Fan's actions simply subverted her worldview. One must know that protectors had unimaginable authority, but at the same time, they also had unimaginable responsibilities. This kind of responsibility made the protector platform inevitably restrict the protector. If the protector was weak, he wouldn't even be able to leave the area of the platform. Even the most powerful protector couldn't leave the area protected by the protector platform. But now, right in front of her, just a moment ago, Luo Fan had directly left the platform and even left this area. How could this not make her feel incredulous? However, even though it was unbelievable, Shu Si still instinctively occupied the platform and began to fuse with it. With the help of the mysterious power of the platform, she began to sense the entire area and protect it. It's changed so much. When she used the platform to sense the entire area again, Shu Si couldn't help but have an indescribable and complicated expression. Although she knew that the area had undergone earth-shattering changes when she saw the little changes earlier, and its essence had improved a lot, she was only watching from the side. However, she was only watching from the side after all. With her ability, the range of her vision was quite limited. Therefore, it wasn't intuitive at all. Only now, when she truly used the platform to sense the entire area, did she truly understand the extent of the changes. Only then could he truly ascertain just how much benefit this region had received from devouring the mysterious energy. Now, compared to before, the entire area was like a paradise compared to hell. In this area, there were all kinds of mysterious sceneries that were previously unimaginable. There were all kinds of cultivation holy lands that were countless times more powerful than before, and all kinds of heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Shu Si, who was extremely familiar with the situation in this area, felt dizzy. At this moment, she couldn't help but feel an indescribable sense of frustration in her heart. Perhaps it's countless times better for him to treat this protector than me. Under this sense of frustration, her feelings for Luo Fan suddenly changed subtly. An emotion called obedience began to appear in her heart for the first time. Luo Fan couldn't care less about the changes in Shu Si's thoughts. At this moment, he had already crossed the area that covered an unknown area and directly stepped into the area guarded by another protector platform. In other words, in the area guarded by the protector platform that had no owner and countless cultivators were constantly fighting for the position of protector. If he had his normal ability, even if he could easily pass through that area, it would definitely take some time. It was impossible for him to cross such a long distance in a flash and enter another area. However, he was now the true owner of the protector platform, and he could easily control every mysterious power in it. Under such circumstances, with the help of the mysterious power, he easily closed the distance between time and space. With a step, he had already completed the time and space that would normally take a long time to cross, and directly stepped into another area. It's a pity that those mysterious powers can't follow me. Stepping into this area and feeling the subtle pressure that was everywhere, Luo Fan couldn't help but sigh. He was the protector of another area. Although he had completely refined the protector platform, causing him to not be shackled by the platform and be able to leave the area guarded by the platform, his identity as a protector could not disappear. This identity naturally had great benefits for him in the area that he was guarding. However, if he left the area that he was guarding, it would be a rather strong shackle. At this moment, he was just standing there without moving, but the protector platform in this area was already staring at him. The mysterious power was already brewing in the void, and it could pour endless power at him at any time. Facing such changes, Luo Fan could only sigh. He used his ability to teleport again and again towards the protector platform that was billions of light years away from where he was. As he got closer to the protector platform, the deterrence he felt from the mysterious power grew stronger. It even vaguely formed an inexplicable pressure that began to form a subtle obstruction to him. It even gradually slowed down his speed, causing his speed to be affected more and more obviously, and in the end, he became slower and slower. After knowing that the protector platform was eyeing him covetously, Luo Fan already knew that this situation would inevitably appear. At this moment, he was not surprised at all, and even his expression did not change at all. As he got closer to the area of the protector platform, he seemed to sense that the battle in that area seemed to be getting more and more intense. The chaotic aura produced by the battle also became more and more chaotic. It seemed that the many cultivators who were fighting for the position of the protector felt some kind of danger and wanted to end this battle as soon as possible so that a protector could be born as soon as possible. It was a pity that the number of cultivators fighting for the position was too many. Even if they wanted to speed up the process, it was impossible to end this battle in a short period of time. After all, this was a battle that would have taken millions of years to end. Even if they sped up the process to a heaven-defying degree, even if they sped up the process by 1,000 or 10,000 times, it would still take hundreds or even thousands of years to end. Chapter 2143. When he arrived at this location, what entered Luo Fan's eyes was an incomparably tragic Azura battlefield. Among them, there were billions of powerful cultivators fighting one another. At every moment there were thousands of cultivators, be they strong or weak, being torn apart by various powers. Endless power was released, stirring up the surrounding spacetime and stirring up the endless laws and laws. The Guardian platform was at the center of the Azura battlefield, in a place that seemed both real and illusory. It seemed like it existed, but it also seemed like it didn't exist. At this moment, the cultivators closest to the platform were already below it. They even felt like they could touch the platform if they stretched out their hand. It was a pity that even the cultivators closest to the platform were fighting with many other cultivators. In fact, compared to the outside world, the fighting here was even more intense, and the casualties were even more disastrous. There was no other reason. Although they were only one step away from the platform, this one step was like a natural moat that firmly blocked everyone's path. This was because at this moment, the platform was simply under the protection of the mysterious power. No matter how strong one was, no matter how great one's means were, and no matter how close one was, as long as one did not grasp the mysterious power, one could only wait for the platform to take the initiative to accept one. Only then would one have a chance of stepping onto the platform. Obviously, although the Guardian platform wanted to find a new Guardian as soon as possible because of Luo Fan's arrival, it was only a platform after all. It was not a real living being and did not have a complete will. Therefore, it was impossible for it to do something as urgent as this. In other words, even at this moment, it still had to wait for a truly qualified guardian to appear before it could accept that cultivator as a guardian. In other words, they still had to go through an extremely tragic battle before they could find the most suitable guardian for this platform, and this was obviously where Luo Fan's opportunity lay. "Looks like my luck is not bad," Luo Fan murmured. His figure did not stop, and he seemed to be moving slowly, but he was actually moving quickly toward the Guardian platform. With every step he took, he seemed to directly traverse a distance of who knew how many light years. He stepped into the range of the Guardian platform selection and invaded the main body of the Guardian platform. As he moved forward, his figure seemed to gradually become illusory and real, as if he was gradually assimilating with the platform, becoming an existence of the same nature as the platform. At first, this change did not attract the attention of the cultivators who were all supreme emperors. They continued to fight fiercely, and they only had eyes for each other. But as time passed, as Luo Fan got closer and closer to the platform, his calm expression became more and more conspicuous. Following that, more and more cultivators noticed his existence and gazes gathered on him from all directions. Following these gazes, the slaughter in the surroundings gradually calmed down. Finally, at a certain moment, all the cultivators discovered Luo Fan and his movements after being alerted by the other cultivators. That incomparably brutal slaughter finally came to an end. The entire Shura battlefield within a radius of who knows how many light years fell into a strange silence. "Who are you?" A shout broke out from the group of cultivators at this moment, and it surged towards Luo Fan like rolling thunder. However, this kind of shout was obviously nothing to Luo Fan. He did not even need to use any power to resist. Just his current state was enough to easily repel all the power mixed in the sound wave. He immediately glanced at the source of the sound waves below. It was a cultivator who had the absolute upper hand in the battle, and his strength was faintly close to the tribulation initiation realm. At this moment, this cultivator had already climbed halfway up the platform, and there were waves of power around him that were resonating with the platform. He was trying his best to make the mysterious power that was as heavy as heaven and earth resonate with him. Beside him and behind him, there were densely packed cultivators eyeing him covetously. Below him, there were countless mixed auras of death, indicating how many cultivators had died here. If it wasn't for Luo Fan, this cultivator was very likely to become the guardian of this platform. In other words, in the eyes of this cultivator, Luo Fan's current behavior was like pulling a tooth out of a tiger's mouth, forcibly robbing him of his identity as the guardian. How could this cultivator not be angry? How could he not be the first one who couldn't help but shout? "This is not a place you can set foot in," Luo Fan just said lightly at this time. As he spoke, he casually waved his hand, and a mysterious power swept past. It instantly crossed time and space, penetrated endless barriers, and directly sent the cultivator hundreds of millions of light years away, as if it was reversing karma. In the eyes of many cultivators, that cultivator had completely disappeared after the strange newcomer spoke. It was as if he had never appeared in the first place. For a time, an inexplicable disturbance arose among the cultivators, and all kinds of indescribable panic emerged in the hearts of the cultivators, causing them to cower. If Luo Fan used a powerful method to deal with that cultivator, although they felt that he was difficult to deal with, they wouldn't cower so easily, and they wouldn't lose the courage to fight for the identity of the guardian because of this. After all, this was a guardian. This identity was simply like a supreme overlord in this vast expanse of the heavens and the earth, and its authority and influence was unimaginable. More importantly, after obtaining the identity of a protector, one's cultivation would be so convenient that it would reach an unimaginable level. Faced with such benefits, even if there was only a 1 in a trillion chance, they would definitely not give up. Moreover, no matter how they looked at it, the probability was more than 1 in a trillion. However, this was only when Luo Fan used a powerful method that they could understand to deal with his opponent. Now that Luo Fan used a mysterious method that they could not understand at all, it was similar to the mysterious method that the Guardian used. This made them all horrified. For cultivators of their level, the only thing that was truly difficult to resist was the mysterious method. Apart from the mysterious method, no matter how powerful it was, they would definitely be able to find a way to deal with it as long as they had enough time. However, they could not find a way to resist the mysterious method that they could not understand at all. This was because they could not understand it, so it was impossible for them to know the principle behind it. It was impossible for them to know the principle behind it, so it was naturally impossible for them to find a way to interrupt the principle, and it was naturally impossible for them to resist this method. Once the opponent had such a method, then it would obviously be extremely easy to deal with existences like them. In particular, this cultivator had forcefully demonstrated it in front of them just now, which made them even more aware of how dangerous this cultivator before them was. With this sense of danger, they began to wake up and retreat began to sound in their hearts. Following that, the cultivators in the outer circle began to retreat, turning into rays of light and rushing out of this area. Their departure gave the other cultivators an example, causing them to make the same choice as them. They turned into rays of light and left. As more and more cultivators made this choice, the number of cultivators in this area began to decrease. It was as if this area had turned into a land of fine sand, and a hole had appeared below it. The fine sand began to flow out of the hole continuously. Seeing the behavior of the many cultivators, Luo Fan no longer had any interest in paying attention to them. At this moment, he turned his head and once again fixed his gaze on the guardian platform in the center, continuously approaching it. The closer he got to the platform, the stronger the repulsive force acting on his body. This repulsive force did not come from anything else, but from the mysterious power within his body that belonged solely to him. It was the endless mysterious power that existed on the platform that repelled all mysterious powers that were different from it. This repulsive force clearly continued to grow stronger as the distance between the two shortened. However, it was obvious that Luo Fan did not care about this repulsive force. No matter how strong this repulsive force was, he just continued to advance step by step towards the platform, completely ignoring this repulsive force that could be called a warning from the platform. As the distance between him and the platform closed to a certain limit, flames suddenly rose on the platform in an instant. This flame was an extremely strange green color. The moment the flame appeared, the surrounding temperature skyrocketed by who knew how many times. Even the laws in the surroundings began to distort and become chaotic, causing the endless heaven and earth that filled the void to continuously collapse and release all sorts of incredible power that swept through the surroundings like wave. Facing this upheaval, the many cultivators who originally wanted to stay here felt an irresistible and terrifying danger approaching them. How could they still dare to stay here? In an instant, all of them roared and quickly rushed out of this area. These cultivators were at least at the false sage stage. Although they were extremely weak here and had no chance of successfully obtaining a guardian, their absolute strength was enough to make almost 99% of the cultivators admire them. However, his absolute strength was enough to make 99% of the cultivators admire him. With this kind of strength, flying away was a piece of cake for them. The moment the green flame appeared on the platform, half of the hundreds of millions of cultivators in this area disappeared. In another breath's time, all the cultivators had disappeared. The surroundings became empty once again, leaving only the endless aura of death lingering in the surroundings. "Looks like your plan has failed," Luo Fan said indifferently to the platform at this moment. At this moment, the mysterious power in his body trembled and instantly turned into a flame that started burning on the surface of his body. This flame was not green like the one on the platform. Instead, it was gray, as if it was in a chaotic state. Furthermore, compared to the green flames, the grayish flames also seemed to be in a chaotic state. Time, space, matter, energy, and everything else seemed to have become extremely chaotic. The instant it appeared, it produced an unimaginable corrosive assimilation effect on everything in the surroundings, causing the surrounding space-time, the surrounding nomological laws, the surrounding energy, and everything else to be continuously transformed into a kind of dusky flame that continuously converged towards this flame. This flame was a method of using the mysterious power that he had thought of over the past few days. Or rather, it was a hidden change in the mysterious power that he had not discovered before. After all, no matter how powerful the mysterious power was and how high its essence was, it was only a type of power. As a power, it was naturally the foundation of the mystique and the driving force of the ability. Just relying on this mysterious power to attack was like using gasoline to drown the enemy, a reckless waste of God's resources. Therefore, while he was comprehending the essence of the mysterious power, he was also constantly developing the magical uses of the mysterious power and the mystique of the mysterious power. This gray flame was one of the results of his development. The moment the gray flame started to rise, the mysterious power on the platform in front of him started to riot. Waves of mysterious power constantly poured into the green flame, causing it to rise and expand continuously. In just a short span of a few breaths, the cyan flame had grown from a small ball to one that filled the heavens and the earth. It was like a huge canopy that stood above the platform. As it grew, the influence it caused was also magnified. The influence on the surrounding spacetime, the surrounding laws, and the surrounding power began to increase. In just a few breaths, the spacetime within a range of tens of thousands of light-years had been completely transformed into the domain of the green flame. In other words, it was completely distorted and became independent from the outside world. This must be a trace of magical power left by a former guardian. Luo Fan looked at this scene, and this thought flashed in his mind. The reason why he made such a guess was very simple. It was because he sensed a natural, sluggish will in the flame that was different from the platform. This kind of will was incomparably stubborn, incomparably tenacious, and even incomparably intelligent. It controlled the flames to carry out a series of indescribably complex changes, causing the green flames to derive all sorts of incredible power in the process. In the end, it even formed a domain of green flames that separated this place from the outside world. This method was clearly not something that could be done by the instincts of the Guardian platform that did not understand the urgency of the situation. In addition, there were no more Guardians on the platform now. Although the will was agile and tenacious, it was ultimately slightly different from the living beings that were still alive, which made him make such a guess. Sure enough, even if it's just a guardian, there are still some powerhouses that are powerful enough to move people. Looking at this scene, Luo Fan could not help but have such a thought flash in his mind. Before this, he actually did not think too highly of the guardians that were born from the tribulations. After all, the pathetic performance of Shu Si and the 7 million or so guardians really made him look down on them. However, now that he saw the traces of the mystique left behind by a guardian of the previous generation, he knew that his previous view was probably wrong. This mystique was clearly created by someone who had a deep understanding of the mysterious power, or even someone like him who had comprehended a certain aspect of the mysterious power. The previous generation of guardians had such a powerhouse. Then, what about this generation? Luo Fan's heart moved slightly, and another thought flashed through his mind. For a moment, he felt an inexplicable sense of anticipation. Battling with a powerhouse was not what he had been looking forward to the most. After all, he was not a martial arts fanatic or battle fanatic. What he was really looking forward to at this moment was that if there was a powerhouse who had also comprehended a certain aspect of the mysterious power, it could greatly reduce the time he needed to comprehend the mysterious power. As long as he could find such a powerhouse, various thoughts flashed through his mind, but he did not stop for a moment. At this moment, the gray flame on the surface of his body had already collided with the distorted space-time, heaven and earth, and laws of the green flame. The grayish flame and the cyan flame were two completely different existences. The changes in the mysterious power derived from the two were also completely different aspects. At this moment, the two collided, but it was simply like the contact of water and hot oil, instantly producing an extremely intense reaction. At this moment, an endless impact erupted the moment the two collided. Amidst the impact, even more mysterious and wonderful changes appeared. It seemed as if space-time was being formed, and it also seemed as if endless destruction was being born. It also seemed as if all sorts of strange things and phenomena were being displayed. The complexity was simply indescribable. Chapter 2144. The two types of flames kept colliding and clashing. The surrounding space-time, heaven and earth, laws, and everything else were divided, destroyed, and annihilated in the process. In the end, they turned into resources for the two of them to increase their strength, allowing them to grow continuously. Phoenix update fast please search. This growth made the conflict between the two of them even more intense, which in turn intensified the changes, forming a vicious cycle between the two. The mysterious power that Luo Fan grasped was naturally much weaker than the mysterious power that the platform grasped. However, his wisdom and willpower were countless times stronger than the platform. Under such circumstances, although the gray flames he controlled could not compare to the green flames that were born on the platform in terms of quantity and intensity, the gray flames that he controlled could not compare to the green flames that were born on the platform. However, the result of the collision between the two was equal. Every time the cyan flame used its powerful quantity to crush the gray flame, causing the gray flame to collapse and scatter, Luo Fan's powerful will would be instilled into it, directly manipulating the broken gray flame to begin to condense again. In the process, it would even devour the scattered heaven and earth, power, and rules of the world that the cyan flame had scattered, strengthening the gray flame. In contrast, under Luo Fan's control, the gray flame was extremely agile. It penetrated through the cracks of the cyan flame with unimaginable finesse and entered the depths of the cyan flame. It directly targeted the core of the cyan flame and began to disintegrate the cyan flame from the inside out. Every time the cyan flame collided with the gray flame, it would suffer more damage than the gray flame. In this way, the conflict between the two had naturally turned white-hot. The outcome of the battle between Luo Fan and the platform was not to shatter the power of the platform, but to become the master of the platform, to become the guardian that the platform had no choice but to recognize. Therefore, at this moment, when his flames resisted the green flames, his body began to approach the platform step by step. It looked like he was walking towards the center of a blazing bonfire with a torch in his hand. Faced with such a situation, the platform did not have any good way to deal with it. It could only continuously condense the green flames in front of Luo Fan in an attempt to block his path forward and prevent him from advancing. Although this method was somewhat effective against the gray flames, it was only somewhat effective. In the end, it still could not truly stop Luo Fan. It could only slightly slow him down. At this moment, a mysterious power began to surge on the platform. Gradually, a figure condensed on the platform. This figure was an old man. He floated above the platform, just below the green flames. He raised his hands up high and the power around him surged. Waves of mysterious thoughts flowed continuously from his body to his hands and into the green flames above him. Following this change, the green flames seemed to become even more agile. The mark left behind by the guardian back then? Looking at this scene, this thought flashed through Luo Fan's mind. For the cultivators of this world, if they wanted to refine this platform and become its guardian, there was only one way, and that was to leave their mark in the depths of the platform and let the platform accept their mark. Therefore, it could be imagined that there must have been one mark after another on any platform since ancient times. For something at the level of a platform, as long as something had existed before, it could obviously reconstruct it. Therefore, even if the guardian had disappeared and the platform had become ownerless again in the process, which meant that there was no longer any mark left, it could still condense any mark that had existed in the past when it needed to. For ordinary creatures, a mark was naturally just a characteristic without any vitality. It could not produce any ability or display any power at all. However, for existences at Luo Fan's level, it was a simple matter to bestow a mark with great power. If even Luo Fan could do this, then it would obviously be even easier for the more mysterious and profound platform to do this, and this was what the platform was doing. Countless thoughts flashed through Luo Fan's mind. In an instant, he had already understood the cause and effect and the principles behind it. It seems that the guardian has already fallen. His heart moved slightly, and after various thoughts flashed through his mind, he already made a judgment. After making this judgment, he let out a sigh of relief. The mark in front of him had already turned into the image of the guardian, but its intelligence was still rather stiff, and it did not show intelligence comparable to its realm at all. This situation clearly meant that the mark was still just a mark. Even with such a change, it still could not change its essence. This situation meant that the guardian did not pour his will into the mark when it was formed. As the guardian, if he really sensed that the guardian platform needed his mark and his will, he would definitely not refuse. Shu Xi's performance was the best proof. Under such circumstances, the reason for the current situation was extremely obvious. The reason why Luo Fan was relieved was even more simple. This was because the mark had been condensed by the platform again, which also meant that the guardian had become the owner of the platform again. If the guardian was still alive, then he would naturally be able to return to the platform and control it again. At that time, if Luo Fan wanted to occupy the platform again, he would have to suppress it like how he did to Shu Si back then. If the Guardian was only at Shu Si's level, he naturally did not care. However, it was clear that the Guardian's ability was on par with his, and it could even use this mysterious power to derive this kind of flame ability. How could Shu Si compare? He was confident that he could seize the platform from someone at Shu Si's level, but he was absolutely not confident that he could escape unscathed from the owner of the mark with a thought. He activated his mysterious power without any hesitation and poured it into the gray flames. The flames suddenly trembled, and like a spark that had been doused with kerosene, it suddenly exploded and began to expand. As it swelled, the flame began to undergo various subtle changes. It was as though it had condensed into numerous long swords that pierced through the surrounding green-colored flame. Like a butcher dismembering an ox, it began to continuously cut the surrounding green-colored flame. During this process, the green-colored flame was continuously cut apart, gradually revealing an increasingly clear and long path that led directly to the source of the flame, which was also that platform. Through the confrontation with the green flames on the platform, he had gained more understanding of the characteristics of the flames, so he was able to control the flames to produce more changes. The mark on the platform was only a mark, after all. Although it strengthened the changes of the green flames after it appeared, it was ultimately limited. Naturally, it was impossible for him to level up in battle like Luo Fan. In the face of Luo Fan's transformation of flames that had condensed into countless sharp swords, he could only futilely use his cyan flames to crush them. In this way, Luo Fan's speed did not decrease, but increased instead. He actually gradually recovered to his original speed, and walked towards the platform step by step. The changes here finally attracted the attention of the surrounding Guardian platforms. After all, there was a subtle connection between the Guardian platforms. A certain platform suddenly began to activate its potential to fight against some existence. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed like a terrifying disaster had occurred in that region. In such a situation, how could the Guardians of the other regions not be concerned? Who knew if this disaster would spread to the region they were guarding? When they noticed this, cries of alarm came from the various Guardian platforms. Among them, the 7 million or so Guardians who had survived were even more shocked, and all of them began to panic. What should we do? His revenge is coming. This was the panic in the hearts of these Guardians. Along with this panic, those Guardians began to collude with each other, trying to get good advice from other Guardians. However, the thoughts in the hearts of many Guardians were similar to them at this time. They were all filled with panic, and each of them seemed to be at a loss as to what to do. With this change, this panic began to gradually spread. In the end, those Guardians who weren't part of the 7 million Guardians who had attacked Luo Fan's Guardian region began to panic. And just as everyone was panicking, a different voice suddenly came out. This is a good chance. He actually left his Guardian region. This is a good chance for us to take revenge. This voice instantly made many Guardians speechless. Then, an inexplicable excitement emerged in the hearts of many Guardians. That's right. He has now left his Guardian region. Without his Guardian platform, his strength has been weakened countless times. In this state, he is simply a fish on the chopping board to us. What's there to be afraid of? This is really our best chance. Damn it. I was almost deceived by the panic in my heart. In this state, he is simply courting death. The voices of the Guardians reverberated continuously, and the confidence between each other constantly increased through this exchange. Then, the Guardians began to collude with each other and began to discuss how to deal with Luo Fan, who had already left their territory. However, among the 7 million Guardians, only a small number of them, which was equivalent to about 10% of the Guardians, participated in it. Although the other Guardians knew that this was an excellent opportunity, after all, the previous 2 experiences had dispelled their sharpness in their hearts. The fear of Luo Fan had already been deeply engraved in their hearts. At this time, although they kept saying that this was a good opportunity and that they should take revenge now, when they really colluded with Luo Fan, they directly shut their mouths and completely retreated. "What's wrong with you guys? You were so awe-inspiring just now. Why are you cowering now?" Some guardians who weren't part of the 7 million guardians angrily rebuked these retreating guardians. "It's not that we're cowering, but we're powerless. Now, the injuries we suffered before have not been alleviated, let alone recovered. Even if we want to participate, we don't have the ability to do so at all." A guardian sighed and said helplessly. What he said was not entirely a lie. How long had it been since their mysterious power was cut off by Luo Fan? In such a short period of time, the backlash they suffered from the platform was still reverberating in their bodies. Perhaps their bodies would collapse if they relaxed a little. The severity of their injuries could be seen at a glance. However, even so, there were still some untruths in their words. After all, they were powerful guardians who had controlled the Guardian platform for hundreds of millions of years. Their ability to manipulate and influence the platform had reached an unimaginable depth. Under such influence, if they really wanted to give it their all, even if they were seriously injured, even if the backlash of the Guardian platform was still reverberating in their bodies, they could still manipulate the Guardian platform to release the mysterious power to participate in their plan this time. After all, the Guardian platform did not expel them and still made them guardians. This already showed that the Guardian platform still recognized their status. The many guardians naturally understood what they meant and began to feel disdainful. "In that case, don't covet the benefits we get later," a guardian said faintly. Luo Fan had huge benefits. This was already a public knowledge to these guardians. After all, Luo Fan's performance was too exaggerated. How long had he been the Guardian platform? Not even 1,000,000 years, right? This amount of time was less than 1/1000th of any of them. And in less than 1/1000th of such a time, Luo Fan had already easily crossed countless bottlenecks and rushed to a height that they could not understand. His understanding of the mysterious power also surpassed all of them. If such a Luo Fan said that he did not have any secrets, it would simply be an insult to all of their intelligence. It was precisely because they felt that Luo Fan was hiding some extremely incredible secret that these guardians were so active in intervening in this plan to deal with Luo Fan. Otherwise, only a few of them had suffered losses because of Luo Fan. How could they be so active in fighting against Luo Fan? Of course. At this moment, the retreating guardians expressed that they were not interested in the benefits of Luo Fan, but they showed the word cowardice incisively and vividly. This kind of performance naturally made the other guardians even more disdainful, and they even couldn't be bothered to communicate with them anymore. The retreating guardians were naturally quite clear about the thoughts of those guardians. Although they felt humiliated in their hearts, they were even more delighted at the misfortune of others. "You guys think that we are weak because we suffered such a big loss before. Little do you know that it is because we suffered such a big loss that we know how strong he is. You guys only have millions of people now, and you want to deal with him?" This was what most of these guardians thought. Of course, there was also a small portion of people who had different thoughts. "Although it's extremely likely that you guys will succeed, if you fail, the result is not something that we can bear." This was the thought of the Protector, whose fear of Luo Fan had already been deeply engraved in his heart and could no longer be erased. Regarding the thoughts of many of these already cowardly guardians, those who were making plans didn't care. At this time, their hearts were already filled with the benefits that they would obtain next. Even at this time, the guardians had already begun to argue about how to divide the secret after obtaining it. Of course, in the end, they were not ordinary mortals. In the end, they were all cultivators with enough wisdom. These guardians were only slightly involved in this aspect. The real focus of their research was on how to deal with Luo Fan. Although these guardians had great confidence in the current Luo Fan, they were still cautious after all. At this time, they repeatedly studied all the abilities that Luo Fan had displayed in the battle with the 7 million Guardians, constantly extracted the data of Luo Fan's abilities, and then studied them one by one through the wisdom of the Guardians. Almost all the Guardians were powerhouses who had entered the tribulation, and each of them was extremely intelligent. In just a short span of a few breaths, they had already studied hundreds of thousands of plans, and had even clearly considered almost every kind of change. All the Guardians finally determined that such research was enough to deal with all the changes, and was enough to completely block all of Luo Fan's resistance.